Chapter 391 The Copper Bell. After repeatedly confirming with Zhang Xiaoman through the radio, Zhou Yinglong finally believed that they had really taken Mount Guan. The Forward Strike Battalion's original plan was to first deploy the Razor Sharp Company to attack the bandits at Mount Donghua, which they felt was easier to take. After that, the Razor Sharp Company would move to attack the stronger forces at Mount Guan together with 2nd Company. But in the end, Mount Guan was taken not long after the Razor Sharp Company set out. Zhang Xiaoman asked on the radio, "Battalion Commander, does this count as our credit?" "Yes, yes, yes," Zhou Yinglong replied. "What are the Razor Sharp Company's casualties? If there's too many casualties, take a short rest and wait for reinforcements." We didn't suffer any casualties. Even as Zhang Xiaoman said that, he was finding it hard to believe. As such, he did not bother hiding the truth. There were only about 100 bandits on Mount Guan, and they were all killed single-handedly by Ren Xiaosu. I'm shocked by it, let alone you. We had only planned for him to pin down the bandits on Mount Guan, but in the end, he pinned them down so hard that all of them died. Then Zhang Xiaoman even heard Zhou Yinglong take a deep breath through the radio before shouting, "What the?" At this moment, Ren Xiaosu was wiping the blood off his body by a stream behind Mount Guan. After that, he changed back into the Razor Sharp Company's combat uniform. Zhao Xiaochen and the others watched Ren Xiaosu as they collected the ammunition and supplies a short distance away. "Did y'all see that? He's acting like it's no big deal after killing over 100 people. He's a little too calm, ain't he? I wonder what he did before coming to Fortress 178. I heard he was also a refugee. He was even a student of Commander Zhang's and well known as ruthless in town. That's what old Zhu told me." Ren Xiaosu stood at the edge of the stream after changing back into the uniform of the Razor Sharp Company. This was just the beginning of his revenge. He still had a lot more battles to fight. Zhang Xiaoman finished reporting to Zhou Yinglong. He asked Zhao Xiaochen, "Count everything we collected." "We've collected two 12.7mm caliber HMGs that came with wheeled mounts and gun shields, 31 ammo boxes, and 2 mortars," Zhao Xiaochen reported. "There's also a lot of rifles, but those are useless to us." Having more guns wasn't necessarily better. They would still need people to carry them to be effective, so the rifles were not much different from scrap metal to them. "Take the mortars and rounds, dismantle the wheel mounts and gun shields from the HMGs before taking them, and grab the HMG ammo too," Zhang Xiaoman said. "The gun shields of the machine guns are more useful in the plains. It's not convenient for us to bring them while on the march." "Wait, something's wrong. Weren't there any grenades there?" Zhao Xiaochen shook his head. "No, we didn't find a single grenade. Were those bandits so poor they couldn't even afford grenades?" Zhang Xiaoman wondered. It was not that the bandits on Mount Guan were poor, but that Ren Xiaosu had already stuffed 7 full boxes of grenades into his storage space before heading down the mountain. Before he obtained any explosive poker cards that were at least 6s, Ren Xiaosu felt he could use the grenades as a replacement. As for how powerful a quad 6 bomb was, he couldn't gauge that yet. Zhang Xiaoman looked at the pile of firearms with shimmering eyes. Even the Razor Sharp Company was only equipped with the standard weaponry whenever they headed out for battle. They did not usually get issued with so much firepower, so they had to depend on their own abilities to get whatever they could from the battlefield. Zhao Xiaochen shouldered a machine gun. "This thing's mine." As he finished speaking, Ren Xiaosu grabbed the machine gun out of Zhao Xiaochen's hands. Zhao Xiaochen was stunned for a moment. Then he heard Ren Xiaosu say, "Platoon commander, let me carry it for you." Zhao Xiaochen was moved to tears. He was such a competent soldier and had such great esprit de corps. Just what kind of an angelic teammate was he? "Thank you, Ren Xiaosu," Zhao Xiaochen said. Gratitude received from Zhao Xiaochen, +1. Ren Xiaosu realized it was rather easy to gain gratitude tokens at Fortress 178. Now that his quest was almost complete, he thought he maybe should continue gaining more gratitude tokens even after the quest. "Captain," Ren Xiaosu looked at Zhang Xiaoman and asked, "What do we do next?" "We'll besiege Mount Donghua," Zhang Xiaoman replied. "The Forward Strike Battalion and Engineering Battalion are about to reach our north They're going to establish and fob there, so we can't have the bandits in the rear go and make trouble for them. Is the fob essential? Ren Xiaosu asked. He was not doubting him but just humbly asking, what's the use of an fob? Ren Xiaosu's impression was that a forward operating base was just a place where one could eat. Zhang Xiaoman patiently explained, by using the FOB, it can greatly reduce the time the troops spend traveling from the rear to the front lines. It can also extend supply lines to a place closer to the enemy's location. For example, an armored brigade must resupply at an FOB before venturing further into the depths of the battlefield. Ren Xiaosu nodded to show he understood. Then how are we attacking Mount Dingyuan? Commander Zhou said we don't have to do a head-on attack, so we only need to blockade them on Mount Dingyuan. Zhang Xiaoman said, now that Mount Guan has been taken, the plan has changed. As such, our mission is no longer considered too difficult, so we should try to keep our casualties to a minimum. After the FOB is built, there'll be new troops coming to provide us with fire support. Then it'll be much easier to capture our target. That same night, everyone took a short rest atop Mount Guan. While the soldiers took off the shoes and sat by the campfire, Ren Xiaosu walked away quietly. Zhang Xiaoman looked at the solitary Ren Xiaosu, who was standing near the edge of the cliff. He suddenly said to the other soldiers, looks like he's got something on his mind. Captain, it's 'cause our feet stink. Zhang Xiaoman joked, don't you think he's weighed down by something? A little. Zhang Xiaoman turned around and looked at Ren Xiaosu's back. He had a feeling that Ren Xiaosu had been through much more than they imagined. He went up to Ren Xiaosu with some piping hot vegetable soup. Here, eat your fill. Thank you, Captain, Ren Xiaosu said. However, Zhang Xiaoman did not walk away after handing the soup to him. Instead, he asked, I heard you recently arrived at Fortress 178. Why have you chosen to come to such a poor place? Ren Xiaosu gave Zhang Xiaoman a look. I didn't plan on coming here, but there's something important that I have to do, and I also share some common goals with Fortress 178. Oh, I see, Zhang Xiaoman nodded. Captain, why did you join the Fortress 178 army? Ren Xiaosu asked. I was born in Fortress 178. Zhang Xiaoman said with a smile, the first thing the young men in the fortress do when they turn 16 is to get a physical to see if they can qualify as soldiers. Some people even attempt suicide after failing the test due to flat feet. Why? Ren Xiaosu asked in surprise. Zhang Xiaoman looked to the northwest like he could see Fortress 178. Then he replied with a smile, so they can get a chance to prove they're brave warriors when the copper bell in the center of the fortress tolls. Chapter 392 Zhang Xiaoman's Dream. All the soldiers of Fortress 178 felt an unparalleled sense of belonging to the ancient fortress, but Ren Xiaosu was still very curious. The interior consortiums never told their residents about your efforts and achievements before, so the residents don't even know who's keeping the peace for them. Even so, y'all are still willing to continue guarding it. Whether they know or not, that's their problem. Zhang Xiaoman smiled and said, but guarding this place is our business. As they were now carrying more ammunition and supplies, the weight on each person's back was almost as heavy as half their own weight. Although everyone was complaining that they were really tired, no one was willing to throw away the ammunition because they depended on it for survival on the battlefield. Using Zhang Xiaoman's own words, when the war arrived, they could only trust the guns in their hands, the bullets in the magazines, and their comrades in the trenches. Therefore, the razor-sharp company despised cowards, as cowards in a company would get their comrades killed. I heard that when Commander Zhang joined the razor-sharp company as a medic, he was not even willing to fire a gun. Zhang Xiaoman said with a smile as he struggled to march forward. At that time, the razor-sharp company's warriors all despised him, yet he did not argue once. But in a battle, he ended up saving the lives of hundreds of wounded soldiers. Not only did he save his own company's comrades, but comrades from other companies were saved as well. That was how he earned their respect in the end. Before that, everyone thought he was just a coward. These gruff men of Fortress 178 were not at all afraid to discuss Zhang Jinglan, and Zhang Jinglan did not seem to mind it either. Zhang Xiaoman said, when I saw your thin and weak frame initially, I thought you wouldn't be good at fighting. However, I never expected you to be so fearsome. Curious, Ren Xiaosu asked, were you also there when Mr. Zhang was in the razor-sharp company? Fat chance. I was still playing in the mud back then. Zhang Xiaoman smiled and said, that was all in the older generation's time. The older generation. Ren Xiaosu asked, who's from the older generation in Fortress 178? Zhang Xiaoman thought back and replied, there's no point mentioning them since most of them are dead. That tragic, huh? Ren Xiaosu was startled. What happened? 16 years ago, there was a war so terrible 90% of our original army perished in it. The remaining survivors said it was a war they barely escaped alive from, with the fortress almost getting destroyed too. Zhang Xiaoman said, do you know why Fortress 178 used to accept refugees? On one hand, everyone was a refugee to begin with, while others were exiled criminals from the Central Plains. So no one disliked one another since they all had the same status. On the other hand, it was because no others were willing to come to this poor place except for refugees. Fortress 178 needed those people to defend the place. Ren Xiaosu said in surprise, there were even exiles from the Central Plains in Fortress 178. Yes, Zhang Xiaoman said with a smile, my neighbor's one of them, but I haven't seen anyone from the Central Plains get exiled to the fortress in over 10 years. I heard they've started exiling them to Stronghold 176 in the north instead. And north of Stronghold 176 is the steppe. Is Stronghold 176 very far away from where we are now? Yes. Then Ren Xiaosu asked, do you have any other thoughts or wishes other than waiting for the bell to sound? Yeah, Zhang Xiaoman laughed and said, I want to be a brigade commander just like my father. Ren Xiaosu was stunned. Your father was a brigade commander. Zhang Xiaoman paused for a moment before saying, what I mean is, my father's dream was to be a brigade commander as well. Ren Xiaosu was surprised. The journey from Mount Guan to Mount Donghua was quite short. Before they had gone far, Zhao Shaochen, who was in charge of leading the formation, suddenly raised his palm. All of the soldiers in the rear immediately took a knee and raised the guns in full alert. Zhang Xiaoman stooped low and ran to the front of the formation. He whispered, what's the matter? We discovered signs of the enemy. I think it's a hidden lookout post, Zhao Shaochen said. Zhang Xiaoman picked up his binoculars and looked ahead. He was surprised to see smoke coming out of the gully several hundred meters ahead. I think someone might be smoking. The smoke produced from cooking does not look like that at all. These fucking bandits even have guards to keep a lookout on the foot of the mountain. How professional. Too bad the guards on duty are idiots. The bandits under the Zong Consortium's control were truly different from other bandits, but all in all, they were still bandits. What do we do? Zhao Shaochen asked, should we kill them? We'll keep marching in the gully towards them. Fu Rao, Lin Ping'an, see if you two can get to the road over there and kill them quietly without your guns. I don't want to cause a commotion, Zhang Xiaoman said. These two were the most outstanding soldiers in the razor-sharp company and were experts at infiltration and knife fighting. However, Fu Rao whispered, Captain, Ren Xiaosu has already gone ahead. As those words trailed off, Zhang Xiaoman's head started to hurt. Having such a fearsome person in the company was also a very frustrating experience. He said, let's wait here quietly. Zhang Xiaoman was most worried that Ren Xiaosu would cause too much of a commotion. However, it was dead silent ahead of them. After several minutes, Ren Xiaosu returned with two people in his hands. They were not dead, just unconscious. Ren Xiaosu threw the two men on the ground. We can ask them about the deployment on the mountain. Who knows, maybe we can use our mortars to take out their MG positions. Bandits aren't really tight-lipped, and the two of them should know quite a lot about the operations. Zhang Xiaoman was taken aback. Most of the time when sneaking past an enemy's defensive line, it was quite difficult to capture them alive. That was because they had to prevent the enemy from struggling, firing warning shots, or shouting to warn others. So the only action taken would be to kill on sight. But with the appearance of Ren Xiaosu, he made the impossible possible. However, Zhang Xiaoman said in a serious tone, Xiaosu, I know you're very capable, but you still have to listen to orders during an op. You have to wait for my command, understand? I'm purposely putting on airs as the company commander, but troops have to obey their commanding officer and execute their orders to a T in a battle. Ren Xiaosu pondered this. Understood, I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize. You don't have experience serving as a soldier of Fortress 178, nor did you go through any training before getting deployed to the battlefield. So long as you have a modest attitude, we'll teach you whatever we can during battles. Ren Xiaosu nodded. Okay, I won't act without permission in the future. While Zhang Xiaoman got someone to slap the two bandits on the ground to wake them, Fu Rao and Lin Ping'an held daggers to their necks and said, "We'll remove our hands, but if you dare shout, you're dead." The two bandits nodded frantically. Zhang Xiaoman took out a battle map and 2 pencils, then said, "I'll give both of you a chance. If you can help us draw the defensive deployment map of Mount Donghua, I'll spare your lives." Fu Rao and Lin Ping'an removed their palms from the bandits' mouths. However, the two bandits asked, "What's a defensive deployment map?" "Just indicate the positions of the heavy machine guns and mortars on the mountain, then tell me how many people are guarding those positions." Zhang Xiaoman said coldly, "We're from Fortress 178. If you cooperate with us, we'll let you go, understand?" The two bandits were stunned. "You're from Fortress 178. Sure, we'll cooperate." Ren Xiaosu was stunned when he saw this. It was like the bandits were not worried Zhang Xiaoman would go back on his words after he mentioned the name of Fortress 178. Chapter 393 Sudden Appearance on the Battlefield. But what surprised Ren Xiaosu even more was that he had thought the two bandits would have tricks up their sleeves. However, they actually pointed out some of the wrong details on the map. Drawing a map was a rather technical skill as it required surveying instruments. You could not confirm how high and wide a location was by just using your eyesight. Although Fortress 178 had attempted to map out the mountain hideouts as detailed as possible, their work was all carried out in secret. As some areas could only be measured visually, deviations on the map were guaranteed. The two bandits took the pencils and drew some circles on the map, with a small circle indicating that it was a heavy machine gun position. The two of them said, "But the heavy machine gun positions often get switched around. A lot of equipment on the mountain are also covered with tarps. We don't know what's under them either, so y'all must be careful. Y'all can't get to the top because the path leading up the mountain has been cut off by trees." A bandit pointed at a route on the map and said, "It seems that our boss was ordered to defend Mount Donghua, so he shipped in a bunch of supplies in advance. He said that as long as we can defend the place for 3 months, everyone would be rewarded." Ren Xiaosu suddenly asked, "Are there any regulars on the mountain?" The two bandits shook their heads. "No, but there's some very powerful folks mixed in with the bandits. They definitely weren't bandits in the valley before." "How many of them are there?" Ren Xiaosu asked. "About 100. There's more than 900 bandits in total on Mount Donghua," one of the bandits said. Ren Xiaosu nodded and did not say anything else. An entire formation of the Zong Consortium's regular troops was among those who had intercepted his group, so he had to get to the bottom of it. If the Zong Consortium's regular troops were here on Mount Donghua, he would have to be careful of them. "Is there no other way up?" Zhang Xiaoman frowned and asked, "Did they say why y'all had to defend Mount Donghua?" "No, how could we know something like that?" One of the bandits said, "So can we leave now?" Zhang Xiaoman hesitated for a moment before waving him off. "Scram, head west and don't let me see you two again." "Ah, all right." The two bandits got up and started to run, but before they even covered 2 steps, they turned around and asked, "Sir, do you have any cigs?" Zhang Xiaoman said impatiently, "Our cigs don't contain the stuff you add into yours." "That's fine," the two bandits said. Zhang Xiaoman had Zhao Shaochen throw 2 packs of cigarettes to them. "Get lost." Ren Xiaosu asked, "We're letting them go just like that?" Fortress 178 never breaks a promise. "Don't worry, the bandits in the valley are all sensible. They won't turn around once they're told to head west," Zhang Xiaoman said nonchalantly. Ren Xiaosu watched as the two bandits disappeared after passing criss-crossing gullies in the west. If it were him, he would not have spared their lives. But he could not say what Zhang Xiaoman did was wrong. Fortress 178 had its own way of survival, after all. The bandits on Mount Donghua have already sealed off the mountain path. Strange, why did they seal off the path? What's the point of keeping guard for 3 months? Zhang Xiaoman wondered. That'll save us a lot of trouble if we just keep guard at the foot of the mountain. They won't be heading down the mountain anyway, Zhao Xiaochen said. No, Zhang Xiaoman said, there must be something fishy about the decision to defend this place. War is not just about a rigid execution of orders. We'll only be successful if we can make the enemy uncomfortable. Why don't we take Mount Donghua by ourselves? Yesterday, Battalion Commander Zhou had ordered them to only lay siege on the bandits at Mount Donghua after they had taken Mount Guan, but from the looks of it, it seemed they would still have to attack Mount Donghua after all. But it's a good thing that we already know about the locations of their HMGs, so we can reduce our casualties by pointing our mortars directly at the enemy's emplacements and destroying them. We must immediately force an attack. Otherwise, when their MG positions change, all the information we just obtained will become outdated, Zhang Xiaoman said. Ren Xiaosu suddenly asked, didn't you say that we should listen to orders in battle? The order was for us to lay siege on the enemies from the foot of the mountain. Zhang Xiaoman explained patiently, what I want to teach you now is how to be adaptable during battle. Zhang Xiaoman looked at Ren Xiaosu while pondering what he had just said. He suddenly felt that he should not have taught him that. Zhao Xiaochen said, are we going to launch an attack tonight then? Zhang Xiaoman nodded and said, if only there were other smaller paths leading up the mountain. We could have sent someone to covertly infiltrate their lair. But this is the only route we have to the top of Mount Donghua. We can only fight our way up even if it's gonna be really difficult. Radioman, contact Commander Zhou and report the situation to him. Suddenly, Ren Xiaosu said, I can climb up the back of Mount Donghua and sneak attack them first, then coordinate further action with y'all. The entire razor-sharp company was stunned when they heard that. How are you gonna climb up that 80-degree slope at the back of the mountain? I have my ways, Ren Xiaosu said, just give me 2 packs of TNT. The razor-sharp company was still well equipped with ammunition. However, TNT was generally used to blow up bunkers and artillery positions, so no one understood what Ren Xiaosu was planning to do with them. Zhang Xiaoman clenched his teeth and said, take care of yourself. Zhang Xiaoman suddenly felt that it was amazing to have such a fearsome person in the company who would always volunteer for the most dangerous tasks. It had never been easier to fight a war now that they had a person like him with such excellent combat skills. In his opinion, it did not matter if Ren Xiaosu was qualified to be the commander of Fortress 178 or not. But at least having a character like Ren Xiaosu on the battlefield was really nice. Zhang Xiaoman said to Ren Xiaosu, regardless of whether the others support you or not, our razor-sharp company will support you. Ain't that so, everyone? Ren Xiaosu was taken aback. What do you mean by supporting me? He somehow felt like he missed out on something very important. At 9 p.m., Zhang Xiaoman handed the TNT and a rope over to Ren Xiaosu for him to carry on his back. When you're climbing up the back of the mountain, you must be extremely careful. If you feel like you can't get up there, don't force it. Ren Xiaosu nodded. Don't worry, when you'll hear the TNT go off on the mountain in 6 hours, immediately start the attack on Mount Donghua and destroy their HMG positions first. I'll be supporting y'all from up there. Through the military case studies of previous wars, Zhang Xiaoman and the others had learned that paratroopers would usually get paradropped onto the battlefield for them to open a path for the rest of the forces to enter. In this way, they could effectively avoid the enemy's interdiction. They were destined to not have things like paratroopers in this era, but that would not stop a fearsome person from climbing a 700-meter tall and 80-degree steep cliff with his bare hands. Besides, could a normal paratrooper have a combat strength as powerful as Ren Xiaosu's? Watching as Ren Xiaosu faded into the distance, Zhao Xiaochen suddenly said, we must start our attack as soon as we hear the noise. I feel that if we don't act quickly enough, he'll wipe out all of the enemy forces before we get there. When they attacked Mount Guan, everyone was worried that Ren Xiaosu would die on the mountain. But this time, they were afraid he would kill the bandits too quickly. However, Zhang Xiaoman shook his head and said, it'll be harder to take Mount Donghua than Mount Guan since the bandit numbers are several times higher. According to Ren Xiaosu, the main fighting forces on Mount Guan died in a previous battle, leaving only remnants of the original bandit group there. We still need to launch an attack on the mountain ASAP, though, so we can ensure Ren Xiaosu's safety. It's the responsibility of the entire razor-sharp company to fight the battle. We can't let him face the pressure all by himself. Starting now, we'll begin implementing noise and light discipline. There will be no smoking, no talking, and no using of flashlights. Everything must be done in silence. Zhang Xiaoman was thinking about something as he looked at the silhouette of Mount Donghua in the distance. Chapter 394 A Spy in the Bandit Lair. Although Mount Donghua was not tall, its terrain was extremely dangerous. The back of the mountain was not scalable at all with its 700-meter steep cliff. If they wanted to storm the mountain, there was only one way to go. Even Ren Xiaosu couldn't scale to the top with his own bare hands. However, he had his shadow clone with him. It was not that he was a daredevil for trying to attack from the rear by himself, but that he did not really wish to reveal his shadow clone in front of Zhang Xiaoman and the others. If Zhang Xiaoman and the others knew he had a shadow clone similar to old Zhu's, a lot of things would probably come to light. This was something Ren Xiaosu had still not figured out how to explain to Zhu Xianchu. How should he explain things to old Zhu when the time came? Maybe he could just deny any knowledge of the Black Cauldron's origins and convince him not to think too much into it. At this moment, the shadow clone was climbing up the face of the mountain while carrying Ren Xiaosu on its back. One of the greatest advantages of the shadow clone was that it would not get tired at all. If Ren Xiaosu tried to climb the mountain on his own, he might not have any strength left to fight even if he could reach the top. His current fitness was only a little more than 3 times that of normal people's, so he was still not that tough. But it was different for the shadow clone. If every supernatural being's control of their superpowers were dependent on the mental strength, then Ren Xiaosu had never really experienced the limit of his willpower before, and neither did he know what his limits were. The shadow clone used the 2 black sabers as anchors as it climbed up the cliff. The black saber was so sharp it could pierce into the cliff easily, but the only thing was that the sabers had to be thrust in laterally. Otherwise, if the saber penetrated into the mountain blade down, the weight of the shadow clone and Ren Xiaosu would cause the black sabers to cut through the stone face like tofu. Ren Xiaosu had discussed with Zhang Xiaoman's group to take action 6 hours after he started scaling the mountain. But in reality, he was a little ahead of time after moving much faster than he had predicted. When Ren Xiaosu poked his head up on the top of the cliff, he saw a campfire burning in the distance in an open space of the bandit lair on Mount Donghua. Some people were sitting next to the campfire holding guns while keeping a lookout. But no one was keeping watch on the back of the mountain. It looked like the bandits never expected anyone to be so brave to actually scale the face of the mountain. Ren Xiaosu did not put away his shadow clone but manipulated it to do a quick survey of the surrounding terrain. Meanwhile, he moved quietly in the shadows. As there were about 900 bandits on Mount Donghua, Ren Xiaosu could not possibly attack them head-on. If he still had his full set of armor, he could have easily taken Mount Donghua by himself without the help of Zhang Xiaoman and the others. But unfortunately, 80% of his nanomachines were destroyed in that battle. And now, he only had enough to barely protect his vitals. He wondered if he would encounter the Yang Consortium's nanosoldiers in the future. However, Ren Xiaosu did not really want to lay a finger on the Yang Consortium's people. It would be quite good if some of the Li Consortium's 1,500 nanosoldiers who attacked Stronghold 88 had survived. Of course, Ren Xiaosu was aware that this was just a passing thought. He knew that neither the Yang Consortium nor the Li Consortium's nanosoldiers would come north. The shadow clone had already crept into one of the barracks and slit the necks of 2 sleeping bandits with its black saber. Everything was carried out quietly. There were only 12 people to a room in the barracks of the bandit lair, and it only took 20 seconds for the shadow clone to kill everyone in the room. However, Ren Xiaosu knew he could not use this method too many times since accidents would definitely happen. All of a sudden, he heard someone speaking in a low voice. After searching for some time, he still could not locate where the sound was coming from. Finally, Ren Xiaosu's gaze settled at a latrine. It was a pit latrine surrounded by a brick wall with only a broken wooden door covering the front, and the metallic hook for locking the wooden door seemed broken as well. The person in the outhouse even had to stretch his arm out and hold the wooden door to prevent it from opening. It looked like someone inside was watching the outside through a small hole in the door. If any bandit walked over, this person would see them through the hole. But it was different for Ren Xiaosu since he had arrived from the back of the mountain. Ren Xiaosu quietly walked up to the outhouse and listened in on the person inside who was whispering, "Boss, I really can't stay on Mount Donghua any longer. They've even sealed the path." Someone said Mount Guan was taken by Fortress 178. The Zong Consortium has hidden two 52 caliber, 155mm howitzers with a firing range of more than 50 kilometers on this mountain. This weapon was phased out of the Zong Consortium's arsenal and placed here at the bandit lair after they calculated the target's strike location. I'm guessing they'll use it to launch a surprise attack on Fortress 178's FOB. The person inside continued, "Boss, if the Zong Consortium uses the howitzers, I'm afraid Fortress 178 will raze Mount Donghua to the ground. If I continue to stay here, wouldn't I have to die along with them?" Okay, thank you, boss. I'll head down the mountain tonight. Do you think we should inform Fortress 178 about the situation on Mount Donghua? Alright, I'll make a trip to their military base and inform them. We can't let the Zong Consortium do whatever they want. We have to prevent them from ruining our battle plans in the south. Ren Xiaosu was listening to everything from the outside. It sounded like the bandit spy inside the outhouse was contacting someone with a remote communications device and reporting about the situation at Mount Donghua. The two bandits had said there was some secret supplies transported up the mountain covered with tarps and that no one knew what they were. Those were probably the howitzers the spy was referring to, right? An effective firing range of more than 50 kilometers could really be called terrifying. Ren Xiaosu remembered Zhang Xiaoman said the forward operating base to the north was only about 40 kilometers from Mount Donghua, and that it was the most suitable place to establish a forward operating base. The Zong Consortium wasn't stupid. They were planning on dealing a severe blow to Fortress 178 with the two howitzers that had been phased out of their arsenal. Although these two howitzers might not be that significant, they could still throw Fortress 178's plan into disarray and intimidate their military. Based on Zhou Yinglong's plan, the forward operating base would be in deep trouble if the razor-sharp company only surrounded Mount Donghua. Was Zhou Yinglong prepared for this? Ren Xiaosu was unsure. However, this person in the outhouse should be from the Qing Consortium, right? There were only the Qing Consortium and the Yang Consortium left in the south. The Qing Consortium was probably the only organization that could send someone here to Mount Donghua to act as a bandit for such a prolonged period. At this moment, when the shadow clone broke into another room in the barracks, some bandits were actually still awake. When they saw it, they shouted so loudly that all the bandits on Mount Donghua were jolted. Awake. The person in the outhouse whispered, "Boss, I can't talk anymore. It sounds like there's a situation on the mountain." While he was still speaking, Ren Xiaosu reached out and pulled open the outhouse door. But he had not expected the person in the outhouse to still be holding onto the door. With one pull, Ren Xiaosu dragged the spy out of the outhouse before he could even pull his pants up. "Who the fuck?" that person shouted as he laid on the ground with his butt bare. He was already preparing to pick a fight with Ren Xiaosu without pulling up his pants. Ren Xiaosu pointed a pistol at the spy. "You're from the Qing Consortium." The spy was not stupid. Looking down the barrel of the gun, he turned obedient. He heard the shouting in the distance, then looked at Ren Xiaosu's razor-sharp company fatigues. "You're from Fortress 178. For some reason, Ren Xiaosu felt like the spy seemed to be relieved. But before Ren Xiaosu could do anything, the spy smashed the palm-sized communication device in his hand onto the ground with the gun still pointed at his head. Chapter 395 Blessed be the good man. The soldiers of the Qing Consortium were all headstrong. Even though a gun was pointed at the spy's head, he decisively destroyed the communications device without any fear of death. Ren Xiaosu said, "Don't worry. Are you Luo Lan's guy?" "Who is Luo Lan?" The spy froze. "Sir, what are you talking about? Why can't I understand anything you're saying?" Ren Xiaosu did not reveal his name. "Pull up your pants first." "Oh, right." The spy hurriedly pulled up his pants. He had not even managed to wipe his butt before getting dragged out of the outhouse. How many others from the King Consortium are here on Mount Dingyuan? Ren Xiaosu asked. The spy said with a wry smile, Sir, I really don't understand what you're getting at. If you're planning on attacking Mount Dingyuan, I can show you the way. Ren Xiaosu lifted the spy over the edge of the cliff. If you don't tell me the truth, I'll drop you. When the spy realized Ren Xiaosu could lift him up with one hand, he closed his eyes while hanging over the edge and muttered, Brothers, I'll be leaving first then. Ren Xiaosu was so angry he almost laughed. He put the spy back on the ground. That'll do. I'm actually a friend of Fatty Luo's. I'll let you go now. This place isn't safe anymore. But don't take the main path, or you're gonna die. At this moment, the spy was still unwilling to come clean. Seeing that Ren Xiaosu had loosened his grip, the spy turned and ran away. But after running for 50 meters without being fired at, he turned back around to Ren Xiaosu and said, Blessed be the good man. After saying that, he continued running into the shadows. But even then, he still did not reveal his identity. But when Ren Xiaosu heard the words, Blessed be the good man, he somehow felt that it was not just a simple thank you. Ren Xiaosu shook his head for a bit before walking over to the bandit lair. Since he had already guessed the spy was from the King Consortium, he would definitely not kill him. After all, he might still have to depend on Luolan and King Zhen to help him find his family after taking his revenge. Moreover, he thought of Luolan as his friend. At this moment, the entire bandit lair was in chaos. Although Ren Xiaosu did not venture into the battlefield, he felt like the bullets were hitting him. Suddenly, Ren Xiaosu felt an enormous pain when a bullet hit the shadow clone in its forehead. Getting hit by a bullet there hurt much more than getting hit at other parts of his shadow clone's body. For some reason, Ren Xiaosu got a feeling that he couldn't allow the shadow clone to be hit between the brows. That could spell big trouble for him. Most supernatural beings were still in the midst of figuring out the powers, and Ren Xiaosu was no exception. As they learned more, everyone would gradually discover their powers had some weaknesses rather than being omnipotent. Ren Xiaosu took off a pack of TNT from his back and lit the fuse. Then he used the shadow door and threw the TNT outside a row of barracks. At this moment, someone was shooting at his shadow clone through a window in the barracks. With a loud explosion, the entire row of brick barracks collapsed and buried the bandits alive. However, there were a total of 7 rows of these barracks. But Ren Xiaosu was not expecting the battle would end by just throwing one block of TNT at the enemy. This was just the signal he was sending to the razor-sharp company at the foot of the mountain. As soon as the TNT went off, the razor-sharp company began to bombard the pre-identified heavy machine gun positions with their mortars from the foot of the mountain. Zhang Xiaoman was leaning against a trench wall and eating hardtack from his field rations. As his mouth was a little dry, he was about to drink some water when the TNT exploded on the mountain. Zhang Xiaoman yelled at Zhao Xiaochen, Fire the mortars. Quickly, fire the mortars. Hardtack crumbs sprayed out of his mouth onto Zhao Xiaochen's face, but Zhao Xiaochen couldn't care less and just wiped his face as he shouted the command, Ready the mortar barrage. 3, 2, 1. Fire. Thump, thump, thump. The mortar rounds flew towards the mountain trailing smoke behind them. After that, their temporary positions were entirely filled with the smell of gunpowder. Zhang Xiaoman inspected his weapon again and said, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th platoons will charge forward with me. Radioman, contact Battalion HQ. 1st platoon will stay here and continue providing artillery support. Fire all the mortar rounds we collected. Now was not the time for them to worry about how much each mortar shell cost. The fiercer the artillery support, the fewer casualties they would suffer. Moreover, they would resupply ammunition once they took Mount Dingyuan. Other soldiers often carefully rationed the ammunition they could use in battle, but the razor-sharp company was different. They were the types who would spend money as they wished and use whatever ammunition they had. If they ran out, they would simply ask for more from Zhou Yinglong without shame. If he refused to give them any, they would throw tantrums back at the battalion headquarters. These people were capable of doing whatever it took to get more supplies. The razor-sharp company's objective was to overcome difficulties, not be frugal while fighting a war. So once the battle began, Zhang Xiaoman assigned a platoon to fire the shells they had collected from Mount Guan like it didn't cost a thing. But when they proceeded up the mountain, Zhang Xiaoman realized the opposing forces he was initially expecting seemed to have disappeared entirely. After the mountain path was sealed, this route should have been heavily guarded by the bandits. However, there was no trace of anyone as they made their way up the mountain. When they passed by the first heavy machine gun position, Zhang Xiaoman was relieved to see that it was exactly where it was marked on the map. This meant their plan was proceeding smoothly. At this moment, intense gunfire suddenly came from the mountain again. Zhang Xiaoman had his men go prone and crawl all the way into a ditch on the side. But when they got into the ditch, everyone realized the gunshots were not aimed at them. What the fuck's happening on the mountaintop? Zhang Xiaoman was bewildered. Everyone, charge forward with me. Ren Xiaosu's in grave danger. But as they charged towards the final machine gun position, Zhang Xiaoman felt from afar that something was wrong. The bandits had switched the location of this heavy machine gun position. It was not positioned on the right side of the path like it was labeled on the map, but on the left. This MG wasn't destroyed in our mortar attack, Zhang Xiaoman said, finding it a little pitiful. Second Platoon Commander Wang Boren, charge your platoon forward and take out that MG. How could things always be smooth sailing in war? It would, of course, be wonderful if they could always take out all of their enemies' emplacements. But if the mortars could not take them all out, they would have to get it done by sacrificing some lives. At this moment, people were bound to die. But still, they would die for a worthy cause. The second platoon's commander, Wang Boren, looked up at the machine gun position and estimated it to be about 300 meters away from them. He said firmly to the soldiers of 2nd Platoon, Ma Dewey, we'll provide cover fire for you to gain another 220 meters. Can you throw a grenade at that MG position? The grenadier, Ma Dewey, hesitated for a moment. That's gonna be difficult. It's definitely in range, but I'm afraid that I won't be accurate. You have to make it happen no matter what. You only have 3 grenades to pull it off. If you don't throw it accurately, all of us will have to die with you. Wang Boren roared, charge. Then everyone in 2nd Platoon got out of the ditch and charged up the mountain. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaoman and the others had already set up their heavy machine guns and got ready to provide covering fire for 2nd Platoon. But at this moment, an explosion boomed at the final heavy machine gun position. All of the sandbags and the people inside were blown into the air. Zhang Xiaoman's eyes lit up. That's TNT. It's Ren Xiaosu. He blew up the HMG position for us. Brothers, charge. Chapter 396 How can we know if we don't try? Initially, Zhang Xiaoman objected to Ren Xiaosu being assigned to his company. He even wanted to discuss with Zhou Yinglong to see if he could transfer him away. But as of now, Zhang Xiaoman was more than likely to hug Zhou Yinglong and give him a peck on the cheek. Assigning Ren Xiaosu to his company was even better than Zhou Yinglong issuing 10 heavy machine guns to them. Everyone in the army who had fought in a battle before would know how difficult it was to destroy a heavy machine gun position. They truly represented the idea of a meat grinder, and was an ultimate weapon that could be wielded on the main battlefield. But now that they had Ren Xiaosu, the heavy machine guns could be destroyed with the TNT. No one knew how he did that. Zhang Xiaoman and the others still did not know what Ren Xiaosu's superpower was. It was quite mysterious. But everyone had their secrets, so there was no need to delve deeper. When Zhang Xiaoman and his men finally charged up the mountain, they did not see Ren Xiaosu anywhere nearby. Meanwhile, the bandits up on the mountain were not concentrating their firepower in the direction, but away from them. Something's weird. Zhang Xiaoman wondered, why does it feel like Ren Xiaosu did not come up here by himself? This feels more like another company scaled the back of the mountain to attack this place. Many of the bandits' barracks had already collapsed, and bodies were strewn all over the place. However, they did not die from gunshot wounds but stab wounds. A soldier was shocked when he passed by the corpses. Did Ren Xiaosu get into close combat with them? At this moment, the bandits on Mount Donghua were engaged in battle with a mysterious shadow. But halfway through the battle, the shadow suddenly slipped behind a barracks and disappeared. The shadow was extremely fearsome and had killed many of the bandits at the beginning. But for some reason, the shadow started acting less aggressively as it used its quick movements to keep the enemy at bay. It never stayed in one place for too long. But when they were searching for the shadow, gunshots suddenly rang out behind them. Some bandits turned around in shock and saw that the razor-sharp company had already set up 3 heavy machine guns at a distance of several hundred meters away behind them. They started shooting at them mercilessly. At the same time, Zhang Xiaoman led 2nd Platoon to outflank the bandits. They attempted to trap all the bandits in the open area and make them targets of the heavy machine guns. Some bandits reacted quickly and immediately hid behind the ruins of the barracks to launch a counterattack. But just as they were about to shoot, they suddenly saw a hand stretch out of a shadow next to them and throw a grenade over. With a loud explosion, the bandits who had just taken cover behind the ruins were blown sky high. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaoman finished organizing a simple defensive formation on the flanks. Zhang Xiaoman had never experienced such a smooth battle before, as though all the hidden threats had been nipped in the bud by someone. It felt like a god's hand was helping them on the battlefield and greenlighting everything for this surprise attack they had launched. However, more than 100 of the bandits in this group had obviously received formal military training before. They retreated slowly all the way back while constantly maintaining an orderly formation. Ren Xiaosu was observing this group of people from the shadows. These 100-odd people were probably the Zong Consortium's regular troops hiding among the bandits. Moreover, the 20-odd soldiers manning the last heavy machine gun position were also more cautious than the bandits. They were probably also a part of the Zong Consortium. The Zong Consortium had placed around 100 of their soldiers here on Mount Donghua and assigned them as the last line of defense. If their roles had been reversed with no supernatural beings participating in the battle, the razor-sharp company might not have even broken through the machine gun position after sacrificing all of their men. Now that Ren Xiaosu had spotted the Zong Consortium's regulars, he was not going to go easy on them. From within the shadows at 200 meters away, he aimed his rifle at them and opened fire. The Zong Consortium's regulars never expected an enemy to be over here as well. With just a burst of fire, the orderly formation they maintained while retreating was disrupted. Zhang Xiaoman shouted, "Charge and continue pressing them. Go Ren Xiaosu." To the north, Zhou Yinglong was leading the entire forward strike battalion to create a defensive line to ensure that the forward operating base at the rear could be built successfully. There were no unusual activities from the Zong Consortium here, but ever since the bandit lair on Mount Guan had been taken, the two sides knew that war had begun. All of a sudden, a soldier ran up to Zhou Yinglong and said in a low voice, "Battalion Commander, the razor-sharp company's Zhang Xiaoman is requesting to speak with you." "Bring the radio over," Zhou Yinglong said while lying on a hill. When the radio telephone operator approached him with the radio set on his back, Zhou Yinglong took the receiver and berated, "Didn't I say to just follow my orders and lay siege on the bandit lair at Mount Donghua? What are y'all messing around for? You've been pinned down at the mountainside now, haven't you? Stay right there and don't move. I'll deploy 2nd Company there to support you." Zhou Yinglong was furious when a radioman from the razor-sharp company called in to report on the situation at Mount Donghua. When the path leading up to Mount Donghua had been sealed, it was clear the bandits were planning on fighting to the bitter end. They might have been able to carry out a sneak attack on the bandit lair previously, but it would be impossible for a single company to take the mountain fort. Zhou Yinglong was really worried that Zhang Xiaoman would act impulsively and lead the entire razor-sharp company to its demise at Mount Donghua. However, Zhang Xiaoman interrupted Zhou Yinglong. "Battalion Commander, we've taken Mount Donghua." Zhou Yinglong was confused. Before the night was over, they had already successfully taken Mount Donghua. Everyone knew that a siege tended to take several days or even months before a mountain fort like that could be captured. Zhou Yinglong said with a dark expression, "Have been drinking." "Battalion Commander, we've really taken Mount Donghua." Zhang Xiaoman said eagerly, "We were fortunate that we attacked this place. Did you know the Zong Consortium hid 2 howitzers on Mount Donghua that were aimed at where the FOB would be built? If we didn't take Mount Donghua, you would have all been in deep trouble." Zhou Yinglong cursed out loud, "What deep trouble? As soon as I heard that Mount Donghua was sealed, I knew the Zong Consortium had such a move up their sleeves. We already relocated the FOB. Their howitzers would never reach us at all. Our FOB is about 80 kilometers away from Mount Donghua, so what are they going to hit us with?" Ren Xiaosu was somewhat relieved when he heard Zhou Yinglong's loud voice coming from the radio. Before this, He was wondering whether Fortress 178 would foresee this cheap move by the Zong Consortium. If they didn't, Fortress 178 really wouldn't live up to its great reputation at fighting wars. However, even a battalion commander like Zhou Yinglong seemed to have a keen situational awareness. Fortress 178 was truly worthy of its reputation. Ren Xiaosu clearly knew he was still deeply ignorant of military knowledge as compared to Zhou Yinglong. He only realized there were long-range howitzers on Mount Donghua after overhearing the spy's conversation with the King Consortium. Zhou Yinglong's voice eased up a little. How many of our people were sacrificed or wounded? Zhang Xiaoman replied, Battalion Commander, only 7 people were wounded, and no one died. On the other end of the call, Zhou Yinglong fell silent for a while. Then he asked, how many bandits did you all wipe out? Zhang Xiaoman said calmly, we killed 927 enemies, of which 131 are suspected to be the Zong Consortium's regulars. Behind that tone was a hint of smugness. Zhou Yinglong knew well what the razor-sharp company was capable of. Under normal circumstances, he would not be surprised if the entire razor-sharp company perished while attacking Mount Donghua. Zhou Yinglong understood very quickly. He instinctively questioned, is the Ren Xiaosu assigned by the commander really that capable? Ren Xiaosu had already walked away. Zhang Xiaoman looked at Ren Xiaosu as he sat alone in the ruins and rested in the distance. After ending the conversation, he walked over to the ruins. Then he sat down next to Ren Xiaosu and asked, what are you fighting so hard for? Ren Xiaosu could clearly have attacked Mount Donghua with them after the mortars had taken out the heavy machine gun positions. However, this young man chose to take the risk of climbing up the mountain with his bare hands and launching an attack on the entire bandit camp all by himself. Ren Xiaosu smiled and said, doing this can help reduce your casualties. Zhang Xiaoman said, but people always die in battle. Sometimes when walking on the road, enemies hiding in the forest and bushes will suddenly pull the triggers of their machine guns and turn your comrades around you into blood-drenched sieves. It's also possible that an artillery shell could suddenly land at your feet and blow up your legs, ripping your internal organs in the process. The battlefield's a place where we have to put our trust in fate. Everything lies with fate. No one can control it. Ren Xiaosu thought for a moment and said, how can we know if we don't try? Zhang Xiaoman was stunned. He realized the reason why Ren Xiaosu was pushing so hard was because he really wanted everyone to stay alive. But this was war. How could there be no casualties in a company tasked to overcome all difficulties? Unless a miracle happened. Chapter 397 The Might of the Razor-Sharp Company. After every big battle, there would always be rewards to reap. Zhang Xiaoman's men had finished firing all their mortar shells with just a few rounds of artillery bombardment. But it didn't matter to them as the bandits on Mount Donghua turned out much more well-armed than they had imagined. These things were not even worth much to an organization like the Zong Consortium. They had almost finished expending their bullets as well. 7.62mm bullets were most commonly used here in the northwest, so plenty of them could be found at the bandit lair. How much ammunition could be expended in a single battle? That was an incalculable amount. If you included the bullets used in training, it was likely that thousands or even tens of thousands of bullets would be expended just to down one person in battle. This counting was purely based on data. Most of the time, the number of bullets expended using suppressive fire was probably much higher. After Zhang Xiaoman and the others brought out all of the ammunition from the bandit lair on Mount Donghua, the soldiers went to retrieve the empty magazine that had been tossed aside during the battle and reinserted fresh bullets. Zhang Xiaoman sighed emotionally. How satisfying it is to take this entire mountain fort by ourselves. All the spoils of war are ours to keep. Wait a minute, why aren't there any grenades here again? Everyone only realized it now that the company commander mentioned it. Looks like it. We only found some individual grenades on the bandits and have not seen an entire box of them yet. The bandits on Mount Donghua aren't even poor, so why can't we even find a full box of grenades? When Ren Xiaosu, who was standing a distance away, heard this, he felt so guilty he did not say anything. Actually, there were as many as 10 boxes of grenades here, with each filled with 20 grenades. But he had already put all of them in his storage space. All of a sudden, the voice from the palace said, "Quest complete." Awarded 5 attribute points. You can distribute them as you like. Ren Xiaosu was stunned. As expected, the rewards were much better for a more challenging quest like the one with a progression percentage. However, he had only completed 90% of the quest in which he had to help his comrades lessen their burden. Why did it suddenly jump to a 100%? Wait a minute, was it due to the 10 boxes of grenades? By putting those grenades into his storage space, it could also be counted as helping his teammates lessen their burden. Ren Xiaosu, who was always taking advantage of any loopholes in the palace's requirements, was shocked. It could even be done like that. He had already stuffed 6 boxes of grenades into his storage space at Mount Guan, but since there was no alert for the completion of the quest, he did not notice the quest progression had ticked up. If he did, he would have finished the quest at that time. Ren Xiaosu was more than happy to help his comrades lessen their burden. He evenly distributed 3 points to strength and 2 points to dexterity. His strength now reached 13.5, while his dexterity was at 12.1. OV. From these attributes alone, Ren Xiaosu's current fitness was already more than 4 times that of a normal adult male. However, Ren Xiaosu was looking forward to whether a new skill would emerge when his strength and dexterity hit 20 much more. Like the City Crusher power-up with a duration of 30 seconds that he had gained after surpassing 10 points in both those attributes. Perhaps there would be a qualitative change every time it exceeded a threshold. While heading down the mountain, everyone in the razor-sharp company had their arms full of supplies. If they could move those 2 howitzers as well, Zhang Xiaoman would probably have dragged them all the way back to the forward operating base. Before leaving, Zhang Xiaoman used the TNT to blow up the muzzles of the 2 howitzers' barrels. This was to prevent the Zong Consortium's people from using them again. Under normal circumstances, they would rather choose to destroy large siege weapons on the battlefield that were less mobile instead of spending great effort to take them away. On their way down the mountain, a fellow soldier suddenly thanked Ren Xiaosu when he walked past him before continuing on as though it were nothing. Immediately after, more and more soldiers thanked Ren Xiaosu when they passed him. They were thanking Ren Xiaosu for helping them take most of the fire in the battle. If it weren't for Ren Xiaosu taking the risk by himself, it would not be a surprise if half of them were killed in combat. Ren Xiaosu was stunned. This time, he had not even requested them to thank him. Even so, all of his comrades were really sincere in thanking him. In just a moment, Ren Xiaosu had gained more than 100 gratitude tokens. His gratitude tokens had suddenly shot up to around 400. After just one battle, Ren Xiaosu not only gained 10 boxes of grenades, 5 attribute points, and a 100-odd thanks, but he also earned the trust of his comrades. Zhang Xiaoman had said that you could only trust the guns and bullets in your hands, as well as your comrades in the trenches who provided covering fire for you on the battlefield. Ren Xiaosu kept quiet as he looked at his comrades in front of him heading down the mountain. Then he deliberately slowed down and waited for those who had not yet thanked him to pass him from behind. They would have to advance all the way northwest now. Zhou Yinglong had ordered the razor-sharp company to join up with the forward strike battalion at the forward operating base first. They would have to wait for the rear troops to fully assemble at the forward operating base before setting off to the next destination based on Commander Zhang's next battle plan. The strongholds under the jurisdiction of the Zong Consortium were all northeast of the forward operating base, while the vast Gobi Desert was situated more than 200 kilometers north. As the razor-sharp company had to travel more than 80 kilometers to get back to the forward operating base, all of the razor-sharp company's soldiers were dog-tired when they arrived. Even dogs would not be as tired as them. It was mainly because they had carried too many fucking things. But the moment they entered the forward operating base, Zhang Xiaoman and the others held their heads high and looked really spirited. Fu Rao and Lin Ping'an even carried their rocket launchers on their shoulders proudly. They really couldn't look any more impressive than they did. Then they walked all the way to the command post tent to be welcomed back by the entire army's advance guard. Ren Xiaosu asked, "Captain, is this really necessary?" Zhang Xiaoman said unhappily, "You wouldn't understand. Our razor-sharp company has emerged victorious, so the entire army must have heard about how a company of just over 100 people wiped out 2 mountain forts. We have to put on a front to show them the might of our razor-sharp company." Ren Xiaosu did not know whether to laugh or cry. They had clearly been complaining that they were dead tired before entering the military base. But when he saw his fellow soldiers around them, they really were looking at the razor-sharp company with adulation. Even the soldiers who were setting up the tents in the base had stopped their work to whisper among themselves. Zhou Yinglong's loud voice boomed, "Put the fucking RPGs away already. It makes you all look like you're coming here to attack the camp." With that, Zhou Yinglong circled the razor-sharp company. When he saw the 7 wounded soldiers lying on stretchers, he shouted, "Where's the medics? Come and carry the wounded off for treatment." "There's no need for that," a wounded soldier from the razor-sharp company hurriedly said. "Ren Xiaosu has already applied some medicine onto our wounds. We've already recovered from our injuries. How can traditional medicine be effective?" Zhou Yinglong said unhappily, "If you've suffered any injuries, you should get them treated, so cut the crap." Ren Xiaosu realized that even though Zhou Yinglong was harsh with his words, his first reaction when he saw the razor-sharp company was to check on the casualties of the company and treat the wounded. The razor-sharp company's wounded were getting anxious. "Ren Xiaosu, please explain to the battalion commander that we're truly all right. If they got taken away to be treated, they would not be able to participate in the next battle. While their brothers were off to fight at the front lines, they would have to recuperate in the medical center. How could they accept that?" Ren Xiaosu looked at Zhou Yinglong and said, "Commander Zhang has also seen the effects of my medicine before. It might be a traditional drug, but it'll heal all kinds of surface injuries within 3 days. Nowadays, there's plenty of magical herbs that can be found in the wilderness." Chapter 398 Third Class Decoration. Zhou Yinglong specifically inspected the wounds of the injured and found that all of them had sustained gunshot wounds. One of them was even unfortunate enough to be hit by the fragments of a stray bullet. However, the wounds below the layer of black medicine had already started to scab. It was as though the injuries were not that serious. In order not to get stretchered off, the injured even jumped off their stretchers and moved about vigorously to show they were absolutely fine. It wasn't an act at all and they really were fine. Zhang Xiaoman, who was standing by the side, directly scolded, "Why didn't you all fucking walk on your own when you were fine?" The wounded chuckled and said, "If we could walk a little less, why not?" Their comrades of the razor-sharp company who had carried them started cursing, "Ya bastards are fucking awful. Y'all are too shameless." At this moment, Zhou Yinglong asked, "Are these all the casualties you suffered after taking Mount Dingyuan?" Zhang Xiaoman said modestly, "It was all due to Battalion Commander Zhou's good teachings." Zhou Yinglong was so angry he smiled. "Enough of your bootlicking. Get out of here and write up the battle report for me." The faces of Zhang Xiaoman and the others fell. "Battalion Commander, all of us in the razor-sharp company are faithful veterans. Now should be the time for us to enjoy some good food and drink here at the FOB rather than writing some battle report." "Why?" Zhou Yinglong gave Zhang Xiaoman the side eye. "Would you also like me to personally pour you some W?" Zhang Xiaoman thought for a moment. "Well, if you don't mind." Zhou Yinglong kicked Zhang Xiaoman in the ass. "Get lost and write the report for me." It was the usual practice to write a report after every battle. On one hand, it was to summarize all of the details of a battle. On the other hand, it was to list any mistakes and lessons learned in combat to prevent the same mistakes from happening again in the future. But Zhang Xiaoman and this group of gruff men hated writing battle reports the most. Since they had already won the battle, why should they still have to list their mistakes and lessons learned? All they had to do was win the battle. These gruff men of the razor-sharp company were all nestled and gathered around Zhang Xiaoman in the tent that had just been put up. At this moment, Zhang Xiaoman looked at Ren Xiaosu while holding a notebook and a pencil. "Ren Xiaosu, you. I'm just a refugee, so I don't know how to write," Ren Xiaosu said. "Oh." Zhang Xiaoman lowered his head dejectedly at first but immediately figured out that something was not right. How could the successor chosen by Commander Zhang be fucking illiterate? If you don't want to write the fucking report, just say it. Doesn't it prick your conscience to lie that blatantly? Zhang Xiaoman chewed on the end of the pencil and tried to recall the details of the battle. It feels like the enemy was defeated even though we did not put in much effort. After thinking for a long time, Zhang Xiaoman still did not know how he should write the report. That was because their victory was mainly due to Ren Xiaosu. That was the truth. Ren Xiaosu, I think it's better for you to write the report. If you're really illiterate, you can just tell me and I will write it out for you. Zhang Xiaoman said, more importantly, we don't even know how exactly you managed to turn the bandit lair at Mount Donghua upside down. Also, what you did will earn you great honors. You'll get promoted right after submitting this report. Ren Xiaosu said, you can just write that everyone fought bravely. Fighting the battle involved the entire company, so I can't take all the credit for it. I don't think that's right. Zhang Xiaoman said awkwardly, we'll be really embarrassed that way. It's not like us to accept credit where it isn't due. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Ren Xiaosu said, forget it, I'll write instead. Then Ren Xiaosu grabbed Zhang Xiaoman's notebook and pencil from him and started making up details of the battle. He described his comrades as soldiers who had shown unsurpassed bravery and resourcefulness in combat. He also wrote about how they broke through the defensive line and killed the enemies in an orderly manner. Zhang Xiaoman was dazed reading what he had written. Was I that great? After he finished writing the report, Ren Xiaosu handed it to Zhang Xiaoman. Take it to the battalion commander. We'll all share the credit. As for Ren Xiaosu, he did not really have a sense of belonging to Fortress 178 yet. He just wanted to use the power of Fortress 178 to take revenge on the Zong Consortium. Therefore, whatever credit he might deserve was completely unimportant to him. After his revenge, he would head to the Central Plains to search for Xiaoyu, Yan Luyuan, and the others. He did not plan to become an official in Fortress 178. So he'd rather leave the credit for others. By now, the entire Razor Sharp company had acknowledged Ren Xiaosu, and he was no longer ostracized by the others. This group of men had even forgotten about the previous incident where Ren Xiaosu caused a misunderstanding and led them to pick a fight with Second Company. However, Zhou Yinglong's intention was to find out about Ren Xiaosu's capabilities from the battle report. He knew it was mostly to the credit of Ren Xiaosu that they could take Mount Donghua with almost no casualties. He also wanted to know what this person the commander had selected was like. However, Ren Xiaosu's name was hardly mentioned in the entire report. Zhou Yinglong glanced at Zhang Xiaoman and said unhappily, how dare you steal the accomplishments of your subordinate? Do you think I won't execute you? Feeling wronged, Zhang Xiaoman stammered, but this report was written by Ren Xiaosu himself. Zhou Yinglong got lost in thought. How could a young man not be greedy for success? What kind of a successor had Commander Zhang chosen? His group of old comrades would definitely ask him about Ren Xiaosu's performance as a soldier under his command. As the battalion commander, wouldn't it be such an embarrassment if he could not even answer that? Zhou Yinglong suddenly asked Zhang Xiaoman, tell me, how did Ren Xiaosu fight this battle? Zhang Xiaoman replied honestly, I didn't see it either, battalion commander. Get out of here. The days at the forward operating base were not as comfortable as expected. At 6:20 a.m., Ren Xiaosu could already hear a volley blaring outside their tent. Then soldiers gathered in their respective formations and began their morning exercises. Very quickly, cadences were being shouted from outside the forward operating base. The soldiers had to run 5 kilometers in full kit before heading out to the battlefield. Only the Razor Sharp company was the exception. That was because they had just finished a battle, so they had the privilege of skipping training to recover at the forward operating base. But after a volley sounded, Zhao Shaochen could not get back to sleep. He laid on his cot and said, something doesn't feel right if I don't do anything after a volley. Is there anyone else who can't sleep like me? In the military tent, there was a scattered response from everyone. Wanna go for a jog? You can't get back to sleep either. It'll be a miracle if I can fall asleep now. Come on, let's go for a run. With that, Ren Xiaosu saw everyone from 1st Platoon get up to put on the uniforms. As such, he got up as well. When he walked out of the tent, he realized that 2nd, 3rd, and 4th platoons were also out of their tents. This included Han Mingali, a medic, and Li Xingcheng, a cook. Zhang Xiaoman said with a chuckle, well done, gentlemen. Even though our Razor Sharp company has gained victory, we can't get too uppity. We have to keep training. Zhao Shaochen muttered, you're the one who's most uppity right now. Will you die if you don't speak? Zhang Xiaoman stared at him. But at this moment, Zhou Yinglong's orderly trotted over to them. Captain Zhang Xiaoman, Battalion Commander Zhou is requesting your presence at the command post. Chapter 399 The Petition. In the command post, Zhou Yinglong said earnestly to Zhang Xiaoman, I just handed in the battle report yesterday, and the commander has already issued a commendation for you today. Things really move quickly during wartime. This shows that the commander values you a lot. Zhang Xiaoman looked overwhelmed. What did commander say? So, your current rank is half a rank above your appointment, but due to the razor-sharp company being a reinforced company and even though your pay had been increased, your responsibilities remained unchanged. Zhou Yinglong said, you've made another big contribution this time, so the personnel division is already preparing talks with you. Upon hearing this, Zhang Xiaoman knew what was going on. I'm not leaving the razor-sharp company. Zhou Yinglong was stunned. This is a good thing. Why are you unhappy? Right now, the razor-sharp company is in the midst of a tough battle. What does it say if I, the company commander, leave at such a time? Even if I get transferred, it'll have to be at the end of the war. Zhang Xiaoman raised his voice and shouted. What are you yelling for? Zhou Yinglong got unhappy. I was just trying to hear your opinion. It's a good thing to begin with, but look at what you're making it out to be. Battalion Commander, do you want me to open up a space for Ren Xiaosu? If that's the case, that's fine too. You'll just have to let me remain a soldier in the razor-sharp company. Zhang Xiaoman said, I'm willing to let him take over as company commander, but I won't leave the razor-sharp company. Zhou Yinglong's temper went away. People like Zhang Xiaoman, who was unwilling to be promoted and would rather get demoted than leave the company, probably only existed among the troops of Fortress 178. However, Zhou Yinglong said, then you can just stay and continue being the commander of the razor-sharp company. This matter has nothing to do with Ren Xiaosu. The commendation has already been given, and the entire company will receive the third-class unit citation, except for him. Why? Zhang Xiaoman was shocked. Just because he was selected by the commander, that's why he's being treated so harshly. Zhang Xiaoman was shocked. He had thought he was going to be transferred to make space for Ren Xiaosu, even though he did not think Ren Xiaosu would be promoted so soon. But it turned out that Ren Xiaosu was the only one who would not receive a medal. Enough, we can't figure out the commander's thoughts. You should go back first. The award ceremony will be held tonight. Zhou Yinglong waved him off. Zhang Xiaoman returned to his company looking out of sorts. He continued to lead everyone in their exercise and training, but everyone could tell that Zhang Xiaoman had something on his mind. Captain, did the battalion commander lecture you? Zhao Xiaochen asked. I feel like you have something on your mind. Zhang Xiaoman said, the commanders decided to give each of us the third-class unit citation because we took Mount Donghua and Mt. Guan successfully. That's great. Zhao Xiaochen was overjoyed. Maybe everyone in our razor-sharp company will even get promoted to officers after the war is over. What's so good about that? Zhang Xiaoman said, only Ren Xiaosu did not get commended and won't receive the third-class medal. Everyone was surprised. Why? Even if Ren Xiaosu did not mention anything about himself in the report, he should still get the award if the rest of the company's also getting it. Could there be some problems with the report? Why don't we get the battalion commander to write a new one? Yes, let's go look for the commander. This is so unfair. Ren Xiaosu risked his life to complete the company's mission. No one else could have climbed the back of that mountain, right? Even if any of us could have climbed that mountain, we might not have caused much damage to the bandit lair. Zhao Xiaochen said angrily, winning this battle should have been his credit in the first place. Everyone looked at Ren Xiaosu. However, Ren Xiaosu just smiled and said, it's all right. It's pretty useless to me even if I were given an award. There's no need to go to the commander on my behalf. Didn't you all say that obedience is our soldierly duty? Let's leave it to the higher-ups to decide however they want. We just need to listen to our orders. Zhang Xiaoman said in exasperation, you need to fight for what you deserve too. Why should I? Ren Xiaosu laughed and continued running. Hurry up and run, or we won't make it in time for dinner. Everyone looked at one another, not knowing what to say. As the night's award ceremony was quite important, the forward operating base had organized it as a pep rally to motivate the soldiers. However, Zhang Xiaoman started addressing all of the razor-sharp company's soldiers except for Ren Xiaosu. Listen up, all of you. Writing this jointly signed petition is an act of insubordination. If the commander gets upset, I'm afraid that every one of us here will no longer have a future in the military. I don't believe that the commander is that kind of person. He's definitely open to suggestions. Zhao Shaochen said. Anyway, I'm gonna sign it. We have to make sure that Ren Xiaosu gets recognized for his contributions. If Ren Xiaosu does not want to fight for it, we'll fight for it on his behalf. Zhang Xiaoman said, all right, I'll write it, then all of you can sign it. The group of gruff men lowered their heads and pondered how to write the petition. It was really difficult for them. Zhang Jinglan arrived at the forward operating base and was having a meeting with all the commanders of the fighting forces. Just as they were about to discuss how to cross the Beiwen River at the front line, an orderly came inside and whispered to him, the officers from the Razor Sharp Company are all here. They said they're representing the entire Razor Sharp Company in submitting a petition. Zhang Jinglan smiled and said, didn't I already say they would be given the third-class unit citation? What are they petitioning about? Let them in. The other commanders whispered, Commander, should we go outside? No need. Zhang Jinglan shook his head. Let's listen to what our men from the Razor Sharp Company have to petition about. Zhang Xiaoman, Zhao Shaochen, and the other officers were brought into the command post tent. Zhang Jinglan smiled and said, tell me, what do the men of the hour who got us our first victory in the opening battles want to petition about? This is our petition. Zhang Xiaoman handed a crumpled piece of paper to Zhang Jinglan. We just feel that Ren Xiaosu's been treated unfairly. We would like to resubmit our battle report. He should be the one credited for winning this battle. Oh, Zhang Jinglan nodded as he read the petition. The petition was even signed by all the soldiers of the Razor Sharp Company. He said, do you mean to say you all fabricated the battle report, and that you too, Zhang Xiaoman and Zhao Shaochen, have falsely claimed credit for the war contribution? Zhang Xiaoman said through his teeth, even if Commander wants to punish us, we'll still admit to it. However, Ren Xiaosu really contributed to the victory. You can't give all of us the third-class unit citation but forget about him. Isn't that as good as a slap to the face? Zhang Jinglan said calmly, let's look at the facts without any bias. Fabricating the battle report, condemning the military from within, and falsely claiming credit for war contributions, these actions will subject you to be revoked of your third-class unit citation. It's no exception even if you were all men of the hour. As for Ren Xiaosu, I already knew about it. Zhang Xiaoman and the others were stunned. What did he mean by he already knew about it? After that, they were led out of the tent by the orderly. Zhang Jinglan slid the petition to the other commanders with a smile. Everyone, have a read. Zhou Yinglong was seated at the end of the line. He thought to himself, Commander Zhang clearly looks like he's in a great mood. By showing the petition to the other commanders, he was obviously trying to tell them what Ren Xiaosu, his chosen candidate, had contributed to the war. As a soldier who had just joined the company, what had he done to deserve his comrades giving up the third-class citation just so they could petition on his behalf? Ren Xiaosu was far more endearing to the Razor Sharp Company than they had imagined. If you were a beam of light, you would eventually encounter other beams of light behind a dark thundercloud. Chapter 400 Urban Warfare. The commanders of the various fighting forces in the command post tent were passing around the jointly signed petition and going through it. The contents of the petition roughly described that during the battle to take control of Mount Dingyuan, Ren Xiaosu had climbed the back of Mount Dingyuan bare-handed to launch a surprise attack on the bandits there. As the credit was his, everyone at the Razor Sharp Company felt ashamed to be awarded the third-class unit citation for it. Moreover, because Commander Zhang did not award the third-class decoration to Ren Xiaosu as well, this was seen as really unfair. As Zhou Yinglong read the petition, he stole a glance at Zhang Jinglan's expression. However, he realized Zhang Jinglan did not seem unhappy. He softly probed, I didn't expect those bastards would come here to chide the commander for acting unfairly. Should I punish them when I return to the barracks? Zhang Jinglan smiled. How could I not know what you're thinking? All right, there's no need to test me. I'm not angry. That's good then. Zhou Yinglong chuckled. Commander, you're such a kind person. At this moment, a brigade commander suddenly wondered. The Razor Sharp Company under Zhou Yinglong's command is notorious for being difficult. Ren Xiaosu's only been posted there for a few days, but he's already gained so much support. Zhang Jinglan said, "Enough, let's not discuss this anymore. The award ceremony tonight will also be cancelled. Zhou Yinglong, go back and tell the Razor Sharp Company that the reason Ren Xiaosu was not included in the third-class citations was that I had intended to award him the second-class decoration. However, since Ren Xiaosu fabricated the battle report that was submitted to me, his second-class medal will also be revoked. We'll start discussing our next battle plan now." Zhou Yinglong, who was sitting in the back, suddenly felt his teeth aching. The commander was way too scheming. He did not even have to give out any awards in the end, and all the commanders of the various fighting forces already knew Ren Xiaosu had already gained a foothold in the Razor Sharp Company. Not only was his combat strength ferocious, but he was also a very inspiring figure there. Previously, the commanders were still discussing among themselves that Zhang Jinglan might have placed Ren Xiaosu into the Razor Sharp Company purely by coincidence, not because he wanted Ren Xiaosu to be his successor. But judging from Commander Zhang's actions, he was clearly paving the way for Ren Xiaosu, wasn't he? Of course, to forge iron, one had to be strong first. If Ren Xiaosu were a weakling, Zhang Jinglan could not groom him as commander even if he wanted to. But as it turned out, Ren Xiaosu was not even close to being a weakling. Zhou Yinglong was a little puzzled. Why did it feel like Commander Zhang was very confident in Ren Xiaosu? Although Ren Xiaosu did not seem to have gained anything out of the mission, all the commanders had a clearer understanding of Zhang Jinglan's intentions and got to know Ren Xiaosu better as a person. Perhaps this had always been Zhang Jinglan's intention. Zhang Xiaoman and the other officers were not back at their own camp yet. People from the personnel division were already coming to the barracks to tell them the awards ceremony that was to be held that night had been cancelled. Ren Xiaosu wondered, why did it get cancelled? It was only the officers who went to submit the petition. The rest of the soldiers did not go. The soldiers from the Razor Sharp Company standing next to Ren Xiaosu did not say a word when they heard that. It was those from the personnel division who said, "Your company's officers went to the commander to protest the fact that you weren't awarded the third-class citation and everyone at the company thought it was unfair to you. The commander has also revoked all of their three-class unit citations over how the battle report was fabricated." Only now did Zhang Xiaoman and the others finally appear back at the camp. Ren Xiaosu frowned and looked at Zhang Xiaoman. "Why did y'all do that? I already said that I don't need any credit for my contributions. You might not want to claim it, but that's your business." Zhang Xiaoman said loudly, "But our brothers at the Razor Sharp Company can't stand to see such unfairness. We're from the Razor Sharp Company, and we're all in this together. One for all, and all for one." Ren Xiaosu stayed silent for a long time. However, the employee from the personnel division who was standing beside him curled his lips and said, "Ren Xiaosu had been awarded the second-class decoration, but that's also been revoked now." "Revoked?" Zhang Xiaoman's smile faded away. "What the fuck did you say?" The employee from the personnel division shot a look at Zhang Xiaoman. "We already prepared the second-class commendation document for Ren Xiaosu, but it's been cancelled now." Zhang Xiaoman looked at Ren Xiaosu, then at the employee. He facepalmed and did not know what to say. The employee from the personnel division laughed. "All right, don't be in a hurry to feel dismayed. HQ has already told us to hold back all of your third-class unit citations until you'll make another contribution. We'll take everything into consideration then." "Really?" Zhang Xiaoman suddenly looked up. The staffer from the personnel division said, "As the entire military already knows that you all are the heroes of the opening battle, you'll still get what you deserve. Also, the commander has given the word that you can keep the spoils of war from the battle at Mount Donghua." Zhang Xiaoman was instantly overjoyed. The spoils of war had always been required to be sent to the supply division to be allocated. After every battle, the Razor Sharp Company's supplies would instantly get knocked back close to zero again. Now that the commander had allowed them to retain their spoils of war, they had probably become the most well-armed company in the entire military. After the personnel division left, Ren Xiaosu thanked Zhang Xiaoman and the others very seriously. "I'll remember everyone's efforts, thank you." "What's there to thank us for?" Zhang Xiaoman waved his hand. "If it weren't for you, most of us wouldn't have made it back." Ren Xiaosu looked at these gruff men from the northwest and was suddenly looking forward to continuing to fight alongside them. At this moment, Zhou Yinglong strode over with a loping stride and yelled, "You maggots, I'll settle the score with y'all after the war is over. Everyone is to pack up your stuff and head to Sichuan village. I want you to take the village within 7 days. Sichuan village was about 70 kilometers northeast of the forward operating base. No one lived there, and it was just a small town that remained behind from before the cataclysm. Now it was a defensive strongpoint for the Zong Consortium at the southernmost side of their territory. The reason Fortress 178 was so eager to attack Sichuan village was because it was too close to their forward operating base. It was to prevent the Zong Consortium from setting up long-range artillery there and putting the forward operating base in their attack radius. The safety of the forward operating base was one of the most important issues at the beginning of the war, and the main mission for the Forward Strike Battalion was to ensure the safety of the forward operating base. Zhang Xiaoman took out a map and scanned it. I heard there's a ton of buildings in Sichuan village that are still standing. They're very suitable for setting up HMGs in. Also, there's new defensive fortifications and bunkers built by the Zong Consortium. This urban warfare isn't going to be easy to handle. Urban warfare was also called urban combat. Under most circumstances, urban warfare was fought at close quarters, and situations would even arise where close combat was required. Hostile and friendly forces could hardly be differentiated from each other, leading to extremely dangerous conflicts. The narrow streets, complex environment, unseen enemies, and gunfire that could come from anywhere. You wouldn't know when a gun would suddenly point out of a dark window and start taking lives. Can't we get the armored brigade to provide cover? Zhao Xiaochen asked with a frown. No, Zhang Xiaoman shook his head. The FOB's facilities haven't been fully upgraded to serve them yet. The armored brigade can't throw themselves headlong into the battlefield. For a moment, even these fearless thugs from the razor-sharp company got a little worried. Only Ren Xiaosu was unaffected. It was as though he were not bothered by the prospect of urban combat. Chapter 401 A Happily Married Life. The war had started the moment the razor-sharp company took Mount Guan. There was no official declaration of war, with the first gunshot fired being the bugle call. Attacking Sichuan village was a very minor interlude in the entire war. Both 2nd Company and 3rd Company had come along with razor-sharp company to Sichuan village as this was not a place they could wage a battle on their own. From here on out, they would be facing the Zong Consortium's regular troops. These regular troops had been put through systematic military training and had shot countless targets before. The only thing was they had never officially been on the battlefield before. Compared with the bandits they faced earlier, these troops were on a completely different level. According to Zhang Xiaoman, the troops of the Zong Consortium were not that much weaker than those from Fortress 178. The only difference was their experience and ability to adapt on the battlefield. There was also a difference in what they had learned during the desensitization training. Some of the Zong Consortium's new recruits would throw up, get disgusted, and become fearful when they saw intestines spilling out and legs getting broken. However, the veterans of Fortress 178 would not. At the forward operating base, Zhou Yinglong got the orderlies to hand out pen and paper to everyone. What's this for? Ren Xiaosu asked. Zhang Xiaoman raised his head and gave him a look. To write your will. Will. Ren Xiaosu was stunned for a moment. On the surface, it's to let everyone write down whatever they want to say. If they don't make it back after a battle, the administration division will deliver the letters to their family. You can consider it a letter to pass down any instructions after your death. If the soldiers manage to return, they can go to the administration division and redeem their letters, Zhang Xiaoman explained. But we just call this thing a will. That sounds like bad luck, Ren Xiaosu said with a smile. There's nothing unlucky about it. Zhang Xiaoman shook his head. Those who step onto the battlefield should be able to make light of death. Actually, we didn't understand it at first, but after fighting so many enemies outside Fortress 178, we're numb to it. Then who are you writing to? Ren Xiaosu asked. My parents, Zhang Xiaoman said, and my wife too. You're married. Listen to what you're saying. I'm almost 30 years old. Zhang Xiaoman chuckled and said, can't I have a wife? Ren Xiaosu felt a little embarrassed. He did not really understand the concept of marriage, so he assumed everyone else was single like him. Thinking about it, since Zhang Xiaoman was the company commander, he couldn't be that young. What does being married feel like? Ren Xiaosu asked. It's not too bad, I guess. There's always a hot meal waiting at home, Zhang Xiaoman said as he wrote out his will. Are you happy? Ren Xiaosu asked. Zhang Xiaoman chuckled and looked up. You must be hankering for love, huh? Why are you so interested in this? Let me put it this way. I've been happily married for 1 year. That sounds pretty nice, Ren Xiaosu said. Beside him, Zhao Xiaochen laughed loudly and said, You don't get it. He's been married for 10 years. Ren Xiaosu was speechless. Then Zhang Xiaoman asked, Aren't you going to write your letter? Ren Xiaosu hesitated for a moment. I don't know who I should write it to. All the warriors of the razor-sharp company fell silent. They realized this was probably the reason Ren Xiaosu had fought so desperately against the Zong Consortium. After leaving the forward operating base, they could only travel on foot. In the battle plan, they would arrive at the outskirts of Sichuan village on the 3rd day. But from the moment they stepped out of the forward operating base, they had to be on full alert. This was in case the Zong Consortium's troops had set up an ambush near Sichuan village. Ren Xiaosu asked, Sichuan village is located on a plain. Although its outskirts are forest, it should be quite difficult for us to break through into Sichuan village, right? A rifle in his hands, Zhang Xiaoman explained, we'll use the mortars to attack first. Their range of 3 kilometers is enough for us to stay outside the range of the enemy's HMGs. Once we create an opening, we can move on to urban combat. Are you confident? Ren Xiaosu asked skeptically. If that doesn't work out, we'll get the artillery troops behind to take out their large-caliber artillery and bombard them. Zhang Xiaoman said, There's definitely a way. On the night of the 2nd day, the sound of gunfire rang out from both sides. From where the razor-sharp company was, heavy machine guns could be heard firing in the distance. Zhang Xiaoman frowned. 2nd Company and 3rd Company have been ambushed. We should be careful too. Everyone had expected the Zong Consortium to set up an ambush outside of Sichuan village, so it was not a surprise. 2nd Company and 3rd Company were probably prepared for this as well. A gunshot suddenly rang out in front of them as well, but it sounded like it came from far away. Zhang Xiaoman and the others instinctively took cover behind a tree by the side of the road, but no bullets flew at them. That's strange. Who's firing? Zhang Xiaoman asked in confusion. Let's continue moving forward. But after the razor-sharp company advanced several hundred meters, they still did not reach where they thought the enemy was. There were not even any gunshots anymore. Something's not right. Zhang Xiaoman frowned and said, We're the ones taking the main path. Is the Zong Consortium trying to mislead us? Fu Rao, Lin Ping'an, I want the 2 of you to take point and scout. It was not that Zhang Xiaoman liked ordering Fu Rao and Lin Ping'an around when there was danger, but that there had to be designated scouts in the company. When a dangerous situation arose, these scouts would be tasked with charging ahead first. This was just a division of responsibilities. Fu Rao and Lin Ping'an crouch-walked through the forest and felt their way forward. However, before they could get far, the 2 of them turned back. Captain, something's wrong. The people ambushing us are all dead. They've been wiped out. There was only a single platoon manning the MG position, and all 30 of the soldiers there died just a while ago. They were still bleeding when we got near them, Lin Ping'an added. Zhang Xiaoman looked suspiciously at Ren Xiaosu. You did this? No, Ren Xiaosu shook his head. Ain't I right here? That's true. The soldiers of the razor-sharp company were also a little stunned. Who helped us take out that MG nest? And their throats were slit. Only a supernatural being is capable of that, right? Everyone was puzzled. A mysterious supernatural being had suddenly appeared on the battlefield and done good deeds for them. The soldiers of the razor-sharp company were not fools. This was clearly done by Ren Xiaosu, but they did not have any evidence of it. To be honest, everyone still did not know what kind of power Ren Xiaosu had. Zhang Xiaoman tried to test Ren Xiaosu again. It really wasn't you. It really wasn't me, Ren Xiaosu said innocently. Zhang Xiaoman came to the machine gun position where he found a corpse and touched the area between the man's thumb and index finger. There's no thick calluses, so they shouldn't be trained soldiers. This group was probably put together with refugees or soldiers from the private troops. They're just cannon fodder, Zhao Xiaochen said. It looks like the Zong Consortium is trying to use cannon fodder to wear us out first. Predictable. Zhang Xiaoman said, there won't be a lack of enemy troops in Sichuan village. A conservative estimate says there's over 1,000 of them. But the good news is that most of the enemies we'll encounter should be very weak. They might not even have a proper understanding of what targeting range is. Sichuan village was not a very important place to begin with. The Zong Consortium had only garrisoned it because they wanted to be a pain in the ass to Fortress 178's forward operating base. Chapter 402. As long as we're still around. Actually, Zhang Xiaoman and the others' suspicions were correct. Ren Xiaosu's shadow clone was the one that had taken out the heavy machine gun position. Right after they had set off, he had been using his shadow clone to scout ahead in case they were ambushed. After experiencing some setbacks, Ren Xiaosu learned how to be more careful and cautious. However, this was not something to be happy about because he had learned to be this way through someone's suffering. The level of enlightenment for every individual was equivalent to the depth of their anguish. Second company and third company's positions were some distance away, with the gap between each of the three companies maintained at around 2 kilometers. Meanwhile, Ren Xiaosu's shadow clone was only effective within a 1 kilometer radius, so he could not send it out to help them. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaoman said, continue marching. We're still a day away from Sichuan village. Don't let up. We might encounter another ambush at any time. The Zong Consortium had placed the refugees and private troops at the front lines. With just a single heavy machine gun, they could make Fortress 178's front-line troops suffer heavy losses. This was a kind of bizarreness that only happened in the era of firearms and explosives. As they marched, Zhang Xiaoman asked Ren Xiaosu, I've actually been quite curious for a while, but you're not very interested in getting promoted, are you? Ren Xiaosu said, after the war, I might be heading to the Central Plains. Wait, Zhang Xiaoman suddenly felt that something was not right. You're saying you'll leave Fortress 178 after the war? That's right, Ren Xiaosu said, I have to go find my family. The day before yesterday when you all were writing your wills, everyone had loved ones that they could write to. But when I wanted to write mine, I realized that there was no one for me to write to. Is the Zong Consortium the cause of this? Zhang Xiaoman asked. Yes, Ren Xiaosu said calmly. Zhang Xiaoman realized it was no wonder Ren Xiaosu was so ruthless towards the Zong Consortium. He even volunteered to lead the main attack for their mission, so it turned out that he actually had a grudge against them. Although Ren Xiaosu did not usually show any anguish, everyone could clearly feel the loneliness emanating from him. For example, when everyone gathered around the campfire, Ren Xiaosu would sit by himself and look up into the starry sky. Or when everyone was laughing and chatting after a meal, Ren Xiaosu would lean against a big tree and look out into the distance. No one knew what was on his mind. When Ren Xiaosu came down from Mount Guan drenched in blood, Zhang Xiaoman had clearly sensed his rage dissipating. Did you kill the bandits on Mount Guan? Zhang Xiaoman was referring to the main forces who had disappeared from Mount Guan. No, Ren Xiaosu shook his head. My little bro killed them. Zhang Xiaoman choked a little. Ren Xiaosu was already this ferocious, yet he had a younger brother who could wipe out an entire mountain of bandits. What kind of a family was this? Of course, Ren Xiaosu did not explain much. But if you leave, wouldn't the commander have placed you in the razor-sharp company for nothing? Zhang Xiaoman asked. Does the commander have other intentions by putting me in the razor-sharp company? I was the one who asked to be posted to the most dangerous unit, Ren Xiaosu wondered. It's nothing, Zhang Xiaoman said. He felt that everyone might have misunderstood the entire situation. How could someone who was going to leave Fortress 178 after the war become the commander of the fortress? Or did Commander Zhang have other ideas? Throughout their journey, there were a total of 3 ambush points. Without exception, the heavy machine guns were all taken out by someone. Ren Xiaosu suddenly asked, it's not like Zhang Jinglan has any combat skills, so why do all y'all listen to him? This doubt had always been on Ren Xiaosu's mind. This group of gruff men from the northwest respected strong people the most. Although Zhang Jinglan was very capable and had saved many people in the past, that should not be enough to give him command over this forlorn hope, right? Zhang Xiaoman shook his head. I don't know, but someone said the commander should never be made to bear arms. Killing others is our job. All the commander has to do is to say who he wants us to kill and how to kill them. When Zhang Xiaoman used the radio to report to Zhou Yinglong that they had arrived at the rendezvous point, Zhou Yinglong was shocked. Second company and third company are still on their way. How'd you get there so quickly? Did you encounter any ambushes on the way? The ambushes we encountered were all taken out by a mysterious supernatural being, Zhang Xiaoman said honestly. We don't know who did it either. It wasn't Ren Xiaosu, Zhou Yinglong asked. We also suspected it could have been him, but he was with us the whole time. Zhang Xiaoman said, Battalion Commander, should we go and provide support to second company and third company? Negative. The companies have their own routes to take. We can't mess up the plan. Zhou Yinglong said, they're not under a lot of pressure either, so they'll only be delayed by a bit. The enemies who ambushed them aren't experienced. Then what should we do now? Zhang Xiaoman asked. Familiarize yourselves with the terrain first, and make preparations to capture Sichuan village while waiting to rendezvous with second company and third company. The other fighting forces of the forward strike battalion will be arriving the day after tomorrow. Then Zhou Yinglong ended their conversation. Zhang Xiaoman ordered, first, second, and third platoons, you get a short break. Fourth, fifth, and sixth platoons, follow me and start building some simple fortifications to prevent our enemies from coming out of Sichuan village and ambushing us. As a matter of fact, even though Zhang Xiaoman was always seen scrounging at the forward operating base and constantly requesting more armaments, he became a fully qualified company commander once he got onto the battlefield. He would unequivocally handle whatever needed to be done during battle. Through the dense forest, Ren Xiaosu was looking at Sichuan village in the distance. The abandoned town's high-rise buildings had long collapsed, and all that remained were the tattered two-story buildings. Zhang Xiaoman said from next to him, even the concrete and metal that humans relied on for survival is no match for the effects of time. As long as there's maintenance done on them, those tall buildings will all collapse in a matter of 200 years. In another 500 years, there won't be any buildings left standing here. The cities of humans are not as sturdy as we imagined them to be. As long as we're still around, that's good enough, Ren Xiaosu remarked. Zhang Xiaoman was stunned before smiling and saying, that's absolutely right. It's fine as long as we're still around. As they were quite close to Sichuan village, they could not start a campfire. Otherwise, they would end up becoming targets for artillery fire from the town. Ren Xiaosu expressed his understanding when he heard this reason. Then, as he had nothing better to do in the middle of the night, he ran far away and started a few campfires out there. As expected, just as the fire burned bright, the artillery from Sichuan village locked onto the locations where the fires were burning and commenced a heavy bombardment. Zhang Xiaoman and the others who were sitting behind some sandbags were confused when they heard the artillery fire. They were wondering who the enemies in town were attacking. When Ren Xiaosu came back after a while, Zhang Xiaoman asked, where'd you go? Oh, Ren Xiaosu explained, didn't you say that campfires would attract the artillery? I went out to start some campfires. I thought that it'd be good if I could make them waste their shells. The troops in this Sichuan village are an isolated force, so they definitely can't restock their ammo. Who knows, we might be able to reduce the number of casualties on our side this way. Ren Xiaosu was just giving it a try and did not really think he would succeed. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaoman was thinking about what he had just done. He wondered how Ren Xiaosu's mind even worked in the first place. Chapter 403 Bickering Before Battle. The sound of artillery fire from Sichuan village was intense. Ren Xiaosu had lit up as many as 7 campfires out there. Meanwhile, the Zong Consortium's soldiers did not think too much and decided to bombard those areas first. Actually, it was very chaotic on the battlefield. Most of the time, the officers would not even have time to consider their actions too carefully, and it was normal to fight the moment they spotted their enemies. Only a small number of commanders could remain calm in the chaos and take the right course of action. And it was these commanders who would emerge victorious from a battle. Some would then go on to become famous military leaders. The artillery fire quickly put the 2nd Company and 3rd Company, who were currently storming the machine gun positions, on high alert. When they heard the sound of the bombardment, they thought the razor-sharp company had already started the attack on the town. Importantly, the battle plan was for the 3 companies to rendezvous before launching an attack on the town. It was practically impossible for a single company to capture Sichuan village, and the casualty count would definitely be disastrous as well. Both second company and third company called into Zhou Yinglong at the rear in unison. They were hoping he could stop the recklessness of the razor-sharp company. Although the razor-sharp company had just accomplished great things by taking Mountain Force, there were two things in a battle that all soldiers were afraid of. One was cowardice, and the other was arrogance. An army cocksure of its invincibility was doomed to defeat. When Zhou Yinglong heard about the situation at the front line, he got anxious. He quickly found a radio operator to contact the razor-sharp company in the hopes they could still get through to them. In the end, the call went through very quickly. Zhou Yinglong said anxiously, "Did you guys start attacking Sichuan village already? Zhang Xiaoman, are you crazy? Didn't I tell you to wait until you joined up with second-third companies before launching an attack? If your razor-sharp company suffers heavy casualties, I'll hold you responsible." Zhang Xiaoman said innocently, "Battalion commander, we're eating right now. We didn't start attacking Sichuan village." Zhou Yinglong was taken aback. "Are you sure? Then what's with the sound of the bombardment?" Zhou Yinglong could still hear the artillery bombardment on the other end while holding the receiver to his ear. Zhang Xiaoman patiently explained, "I told Ren Xiaosu earlier that since we were very close to Sichuan village, we shouldn't light any campfires or risk ending up as targets for the enemy. In the end, he ran off to a faraway place and started many campfires. He said he wanted to make the enemy at Sichuan village waste some of their shells." It went silent in the call. Zhou Yinglong had not expected a situation like this. He said in a daze, "Where's Ren Xiaosu? Oh yeah, where's Ren Xiaosu?" Zhang Xiaoman looked around but could not find Ren Xiaosu. Then he saw another group of campfires lighting up in the distance. He said numbly, he went out to start a few more campfires. But this time, the Zong Consortium's troops in Sichuan village seemed to have realized that something was amiss. They gradually stopped their bombardment. But after waiting half the night, Zhang Xiaoman did not see another campfire light up. Meanwhile, Ren Xiaosu had also not returned yet. He muttered to Zhao Xiaochen, "I wonder what Ren Xiaosu's up to now." When dawn was about to break, Ren Xiaosu finally came back. Zhang Xiaoman leaned forward and sniffed. He could still smell gunpowder on Ren Xiaosu. "Where have you been?" "When I saw that second company and third company still hadn't arrived even after waiting for so long, I thought I'd go help them," Ren Xiaosu explained. Zhang Xiaoman froze. He realized he had underestimated Ren Xiaosu's ferocity. He still had the strength to go and help his allies. As they were speaking, second company and third company finally arrived. The commander of second company was still wondering as they walked over, "I wonder who helped us destroy that MG position with a grenade." Zhang Xiaoman glanced over at Ren Xiaosu. At this moment, Ren Xiaosu was squatting behind the bushes and quietly watching the silent Sichuan village in the distance. Zhang Xiaoman did not say anything else. He turned to second company and third company and said, "Why have you only just arrived?" Both second company and third company were puzzled. "Didn't y'all encounter any ambushes last night?" "We did," Zhang Xiaoman said. "If our razor-sharp company can be stopped with just a machine gun, we're willing to give up our name of razor-sharp to y'all." The faces of both second company and third company's commanders darkened. Zhang Xiaoman was too fucking arrogant recently. Was it really that easy for y'all to take out the MG nests? Second company's commander said unhappily, "The trenches they dug were so effective that even our mortars couldn't cause any damage to them." Zhang Xiaoman, don't get too cocky. We don't care about getting the razor-sharp name. What the second company and third company's commanders did not know was that the razor-sharp company did not even encounter any living enemies in the course of their march. However, this did not stop Zhang Xiaoman from full-on mocking them. "Don't stray from the subject," Zhang Xiaoman said, "rest up during the day. We'll start by launching an aggressive attack on Sichuan village at midnight. Our razor-sharp company will be responsible for creating an opening, so you'll better not drag us back." The moment he said that, the commanders of second company and third company got so angry they nearly lost their appetites. However, this was the culture at Fortress 178. As long as you were good at fighting, it wouldn't matter how tough your words sounded. Even though second company and third company were angered by this, they had to accept it. During their rest, all they could think of was how to win back their reputation during the attack on Sichuan village. The commander of 2nd Company quietly held a meeting with his officers. I don't want any of us losing our reason later just to prove our worth, understand? The officers said, understood, sir. The company commander's responsibility was not only to lead in a battle, but also to know when to remind their soldiers to be cool-headed. Fighting a war was a matter of life and death, so one must not allow their emotions to rule their heads. But immediately after the commander of 2nd Company was done speaking to his men, he heard Zhang Xiaoman loudly say, everyone, don't be in a hurry when attacking Sichuan village tonight. It's fine even if we allow 2nd Company and 3rd Company to get the credit. We're a team, after all, so our razor-sharp company shouldn't be hogging all the contributions, right? This time, 2nd Company's commander nearly vomited blood. It was normal to have some friendly bickering before a battle. They were all veterans with a lot of battlefield experience and knew how to put aside their emotions when going into battle. Zhang Xiaoman was on very good terms with 2nd Company and 3rd Company. Otherwise, he would not dare to talk nonsense like this before a battle. The commander of 2nd Company turned around and looked in the direction of the razor-sharp company. He saw Ren Xiaosu sitting alone with his eyes closed. Someone in the company muttered, that's Ren Xiaosu, right. I heard he scaled a 700-meter high cliff with his bare hands during the attack on Mount Donghua. Are you serious? A 2nd Company soldier asked skeptically. Even Battalion Commander Zhou couldn't do that, right? When Zhao Xiaochen heard the discussion about Ren Xiaosu in 2nd Company, he remarked, when Ren Xiaosu came back early in the morning, he said he went to help you guys. Weren't you all asking who helped you to take out the MG nest? It was him. The commander of 2nd Company was stunned. Zhao Xiaochen would not lie about such a thing. I heard he's a supernatural being, right? What's his power? Zhao Xiaochen went silent for a moment. We don't know either. For a second, all of the soldiers at the camp looked at Ren Xiaosu either intentionally or unintentionally. They all had the same thought on their minds, is this the person Commander Zhang chose? No wonder that the commander chose him. Chapter 404 Power Revealed. At 3 a.m., most people would easily start falling asleep. However, Zhang Xiaoman did not think the enemy would be sleeping at this time. It was easier to breach the enemy's machine gun positions under the cover of night. Zhang Xiaoman quietly led the razor-sharp company forward. They could not rashly approach Sichuan village because there were sure to be machine guns waiting in the windows. The effective range of heavy machine guns tended to usually be between 1,000 and 2,000 meters. Some machine guns could even reach a range of 3,000 meters or 5,000 meters. However, once the range exceeded 500 meters, most shots from a machine gun would lose accuracy. Whether or not they could hit someone purely depended on luck. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaoman had set up some mortar positions 2.9 kilometers away from Sichuan village, the maximum range at which they were effective. He was planning to destroy the buildings on the periphery of the village first. They did not need the mortars to inflict a lot of casualties. All they needed was for them to bring down the buildings and turn them into rubble. That would create a natural defensive barrier for Fortress 178's soldiers to get close to Sichuan village. Ren Xiaosu looked at Zhao Xiaochen skillfully adjusting the mortar's angle. He suddenly asked, where's the most terrifying part of urban combat? Zhang Xiaoman thought for a moment and said, every room with a window could be turned into an enemy position. Then why don't we just demolish all the buildings and flatten them? Ren Xiaosu said. Zhang Xiaoman chuckled. You make it sound so easy, but how are we going to achieve that? How many mortar rounds would we have to waste for that? Ren Xiaosu stopped talking. He was hesitating about whether he should use the steam locomotive to flatten the buildings. It would definitely be painful for him, but he felt that such a method would be very useful. After all, the old buildings couldn't withstand the impact of the steam locomotive. What was impossible for Zhang Xiaoman and the others was only one of the many methods that Ren Xiaosu could choose to use. But after some thought, Ren Xiaosu realized this was not his only way to launch an attack on the enemy. It would be better to choose a more conservative approach. If the steam locomotive crashed into the buildings, he might just vomit blood again from the pain. At this moment, Zhao Xiaochen said at the side, Captain, all preparations are complete. Zhang Xiaoman glanced at 2nd Company before saying softly, other than Zhao Shaochen and those who are operating the mortars to provide cover, the rest are to advance with me. Zhao Shaochen, keep this in mind, don't allow the enemies in Sichuan village to reinforce the defenses on the periphery. Attack them with everything you've got. Right now, Zhang Xiaoman was most worried about the required time for them to charge 3 kilometers. In that duration, the enemy was fully capable of reorganizing themselves to stop them from entering the town. Therefore, the accuracy of Zhao Shaochen's mortar bombardment would become crucial in their charge. Zhao Shaochen was put in a difficult spot. Captain, it's too far. Furthermore, when we fire our mortars, the enemies will also fire back at us. We'll need to keep changing our positions. I don't care about that. Zhang Xiaoman said, our lives are in your hands. Then Zhang Xiaoman led his men forward. Ren Xiaosu followed close behind him while Zhao Shaochen was left with a problem at the rear. The firing of mortars whooshed from the back. The razor-sharp company had deployed 6 mortars, and they were firing at Sichuan village all at once. After firing, Zhao Shaochen shouted anxiously, run. Switch locations and fire again. The soldiers from razor-sharp company adroitly carried the mortars and ran off, in case the bombardment from Sichuan village turned them into live targets. Ren Xiaosu wondered, won't they have to readjust the angle and range when they get to another spot? That'll delay the covering fire, won't it? No, Zhang Xiaoman said, that's Zhao Shaochen's expertise. No one in the entire army is better at it than him. Ordinarily, mortars would never be used in this way, because every time they shifted positions, it would take an extremely long time to recalibrate the trajectory of fire. However, Zhao Shaochen's expertise enabled the razor-sharp company to become this mobile. Many of the other fighting forces had tried to recruit Zhao Shaochen into their ranks, but they were all stopped by Zhou Yinglong. As they were talking, the second wave of mortar rounds hit Sichuan village. Ren Xiaosu watched as the buildings on the periphery of Sichuan village collapsed into rubble, forming cover for the razor-sharp company. Meanwhile, the artillery in the town started firing at the suspected area where the mortar fire was coming from. But by then, Zhao Shaochen had already fled with his men. This was a great strategy, indeed. Ren Xiaosu asked, Zhao Shaochen is an expert. How did he master it? If you're afraid to die, you can train hard, Zhang Xiaoman panted. As soon as the enemies in Sichuan village saw the mortar bombardment, their soldiers immediately moved towards the periphery and tried to re-establish a defensive line. But the platoon Zhao Shaochen was leading had set up another mortar shelling. The third wave of artillery fire happened to be right in the path of the enemy's movements and intercepted them. Back when the soldiers of the razor-sharp company were eating and bragging to each other, someone said how great it would be if all of them could become supernatural beings. Zhao Shaochen said at that time that if he were a supernatural being, he would definitely find it very easy to lug the mortar around. Zhang Xiaoman, Zhao Shaochen, and the others did not have any superpowers. They had become an integral part of the razor-sharp company in the forward strike battalion purely through their hard work. Zhang Xiaoman and the others were approaching the rubble. He looked up ahead at Sichuan village and saw a small, 2-story building still standing not too far away. However, he could not make out if there were any enemies behind the dark window. If there were a heavy machine gun nest set up inside that building, many of the razor-sharp company's soldiers would probably have to die here. But were they going to stop fighting just because people would die? Taking casualties in war was unavoidable. He lowered his voice and whisper shouted, those who aren't afraid to die, attack with me. Watch out for that window on the 2nd floor. Before he could finish speaking, he suddenly saw Ren Xiaosu hold a grenade in his hand and extend it into a shadow. A second later, an explosion burst from that 2nd floor window that he was worrying about a moment ago. With a loud boom, a huge cloud of dust was blown out of the window while cries of the Zong Consortium's soldiers came from the inside. Zhang Xiaoman was stunned. What kind of fucking power was that? But Ren Xiaosu did not stop moving. He ran towards the rubble as he said, if you think there's a spot where it might be dangerous, tell me. As long as it's within a kilometer, let me handle it. Zhang Xiaoman was shocked. Urban warfare was at its most dangerous when it was too difficult to deal with enemies hiding behind windows during a close-quarters fight. But with Ren Xiaosu's power, it was as though he was a born nemesis for enemies in urban combat. No matter how well one hid, as long as enemies were suspected to be in a building, they would be greeted with a dropped grenade. In the past, the The razor-sharp company would always have a hard time when they had to fight in urban settings, because there wasn't really a good strategy for such battles. All they could rely on was Zhao Shaochun's long-range cover fire to suppress the enemies for them. But things were different now. They no longer had to be afraid of anything. Zhang Xiaoman suddenly asked, "Wait, was it because of you that we didn't find any grenades at Mount Guan and Mt. Donghua?" Ren Xiaosu was about to explain when Zhang Xiaoman said, "Don't explain. In the future, you don't have to hide the grenades we seize anymore. They're all yours to keep." Chapter 405 Staunch. Zhang Xiaoman looked at Ren Xiaosu like he was a treasure. He was a military man, so he only required a moment to understand what the ability to drop a grenade accurately from a kilometer away could do for their assaults and sieges. They could take out machine gun positions easily, as well as freely engage in urban warfare without breaking a sweat. If they encountered any defensive bunkers when attacking high ground, they would not have to worry either. The enemy's fortifications on land were paper-thin in Ren Xiaosu's presence. Zhang Xiaoman said excitedly to Ren Xiaosu, "From now on, whoever tries to take any grenades from you is as good as trying to take my life." Ren Xiaosu was stunned. "That's not nice, is it?" As he spoke, he stuffed a second grenade behind another dark window. The Zong Consortium soldiers who were about to sweep their machine guns were blown out of the window by the grenade. Curious, Zhang Xiaosu asked, "Xiaosu, where do you even keep these grenades? I don't see any hand grenades on you. Is this 1 power or 2 powers? Serious, Ren Xiaosu answered, "I only have 1 power, and it's to open up a dark passage to a dimension with a small storage area I can put stuff in." Honestly, Ren Xiaosu felt this explanation was very illogical. After all, the shadow door did not have the ability to open another dimension. However, even the supernatural beings themselves did not fully understand superpowers. Even if he made up something to fool an ordinary person, the other party would still believe them no matter how unbelievable it was. After all, these were already superpowers they were talking about, so why would they be based on logic? Zhang Xiaoman was startled by Ren Xiaosu's explanation. He called over his platoon commanders and said to them, "Remove all the grenades on everyone and hand them over to Ren Xiaosu. We're going to start advancing in the direction of the artillery. Ren Xiaosu, I want you to blow up all of the arty." Ren Xiaosu had already saved more than a dozen boxes of grenades from the bandit lairs, with each box containing 20 grenades. Meanwhile, the soldiers of the razor-sharp company were given 3 grenades each as standard issue by the supply division of Fortress 178. There were a total of 184 people in razor-sharp company. Excluding the platoon that stayed behind to man the mortars, there were a total of 154 people on the front line. The number of grenades they had numbered several hundred. So when Ren Xiaosu grouped all of them together in his storage space, he felt so nervous his scalp went numb. The razor-sharp company was sneaking through the rubble as they advanced. Whenever there was a spot where the enemy could be hiding, Zhang Xiaoman would remind Ren Xiaosu to bomb it from a distance. On the flanks, 2nd Company and 3rd Company had similarly infiltrated into Sichuan village. They could only watch helplessly as the razor-sharp company left them far behind in their wake. 2nd Company and 3rd Company's mission was to provide cover for the razor-sharp company on both flanks. But from the looks of it, the razor-sharp company did not look like they needed any support. The exploding of grenades could be heard everywhere inside Sichuan village. What was even more surprising was that the razor-sharp company did not even encounter a proper enemy. What the hell was going on? The buildings still standing in Sichuan village stretched for up to 6 kilometers, and the razor-sharp company had only taken half an hour so far to advance 500 meters in. They had planned to take this town within a fortnight, but it seemed that the razor-sharp company would only need 2 to 3 days to clear out the entire town now. However, Zhang Xiaoman did not want to get greedy and risk advancing farther. Their enemies on the flanks were still there. If 2nd Company and 3rd Company could not keep up with their progress, they might very well find themselves surrounded by the enemies in Sichuan village. And there was also the problem of whether there was a sniper in this town. On top of that, no one knew whether there might be any traps hidden underground. Thus, it was better to wait for the other 2 companies to join up with them first before continuing the assault. Zhang Xiaoman suddenly raised his arm and shouted for the troops to change their route. They were going to head towards Second Company to provide support, with Ren Xiaosu in charge of blowing up enemies while the rest provided cover for him. They would also have to verify that the enemies in the buildings they had passed by were all dead. Although some enemies had been blown up by the grenades, they were still looking to take the fight to the razor-sharp company to the bitter end. If the enemy ambushed them at this time, that would be horrible. The number of people who died from fighting in this tough battle wasn't the horrible fact, but that their carelessness could lead to the death of comrades. The former was unavoidable, but the latter was a matter of attitude. Second Company was still having trouble dealing with a machine gun positioned behind a window at an intersection. Suddenly, an explosion rang out behind that window, and the enemy soldiers and machine gun were blown out from it. When the commander of Second Company looked up, he saw Zhang Xiaoman waving to them. "Catch up, we're gonna provide support for Third Company." A soldier from Second Company mumbled, "What does he think urban warfare is? He's moving so freely." By midnight, the razor-sharp company, Second Company, and Third Company were finally assembled together in an empty building. The soldiers upstairs from the razor-sharp company had set up several heavy machine gun nests and were on high alert to their surroundings. Downstairs, Zhang Xiaoman was holding a meeting with the commanders of Second Company and Third Company. "Hand over your remaining TNT and grenades to us." The commander of Second Company turned unhappy. "Hand them over to all y'all. Then what are we going to use?" Meanwhile, the commander of Third Company was worried about something else. "All of us are in this building. What if the enemy bombs this place? Wouldn't we be annihilated right here?" "Don't worry," Zhang Xiaoman said calmly, "all the artillery in Sichuan village has been destroyed by our razor-sharp company." "What the hell are you talking about?" The face of the Second Company's commander darkened. "The artillery positions are still at least 700 meters away from here. Tell me, how could you possibly have destroyed them all?" "That's confidential, so how can I tell you?" Zhang Xiaoman laughed. "I've gathered you all here for nothing other than telling you how ferocious our razor-sharp company is. Grenades are a divine weapon when put into our hands. It's a waste to let y'all hold on to them." The commander of Second Company thought of how difficult it was to bring everyone together at one point. So it was just because he wanted to ask for their ammunition. By now, they had advanced about 2 kilometers into Sichuan village. With still a lot of enemies remaining on the northern side, there would be quite a few tough battles left to fight. So Zhang Xiaoman made Ren Xiaosu count the number of grenades they had left and realized there were not enough. The eyes of Third Company's commander darted around as he suddenly said, "Zhang Xiaoman, be honest and tell us what you want the grenades for. Earlier, I saw one of the enemy's MG nests get destroyed before you even arrived. What exactly is going on?" Zhang Xiaoman turned around and looked at Ren Xiaosu, seeing him nod his head. Only then did Zhang Xiaoman say, "Ren Xiaosu's power lets him throw grenades anywhere he wants within a 1 kilometer radius. It won't drop more than a meter from where he wants it to land. So you'll understand now, right? Hand the grenades to us and let the razor-sharp company clear a path forward. When the time comes, we can all share the credit." The commander of Second Company was still reluctant. "If we give you all our grenades, what are we going to?" "Li Haichen, you better think this through." Zhang Xiaoman cut him off. "We're in a war now, and those machine gun bullets are whisking past everyone blindly. Is your Second Company's mission more important, or are the lives of your soldiers more important? Besides, by handing over the grenades to us and letting the razor-sharp company forge a path ahead, the mission can still be completed all the same." The commander of Second Company hesitated before finally saying with a sigh, "All right, you can have them all. We won't take a share of the credit either. Whatever really takes place should be reported as such. Our Second Company doesn't want leftovers." Zhang Xiaoman happily gave him a thumbs up and said, "All right, Second Company, you sure are staunch." Then Zhang Xiaoman turned to the commander of Third Company. "So is Third Company just as staunch?" The commander of Third Company was annoyed. "Zhang Xiaoman, stop fucking rubbing it in." Chapter 406 Wiping out the Zong Consortium. Ren Xiaosu stared blankly at the hundreds of hand grenades placed in front of him and was at a loss for words. Second Company's commander Li Haichen looked at Zhang Xiaoman and said, "Remember this, we gave the grenades to you so you can help reduce the number of casualties to our Second Company and Third Company. Don't take the grenades and venture out too deep into enemy lines. Otherwise, Even if you manage to achieve something great, I'll still report y'all to the commander. In the end, Zhang Xiaoman managed to move 2nd Company's commander Li Haichen by giving the reason that this would help reduce the casualties for their side. During the attack on Sichuan village last night, 2nd Company suffered more than 10 casualties. They were all good friends who trained and got along well with each other. Any achievements in battle were not as important as staying alive, and this was the consensus among the officers of Fortress 178. When it was time to fight the tough battles, they would fight the tough battles. But if there was a better choice, they would definitely prioritize the survival of their troops. Don't worry one bit, Zhang Xiaoman said with a smile, we're sister units, so why would we do something like that? Come, Ren Xiaosu, put away these grenades. We'll continue attacking after night falls. Ren Xiaosu watched quietly as Zhang Xiaoman negotiated with 2nd Company and 3rd Company. A group of soldiers were smoking and chatting off to the side, and some of them had even taken off the shoes. The entire building was filled with a strange odor that was mixed with the smell of cigarettes. However, the cigarettes were different from those the private troops of the other strongholds smoked. Even while the soldiers were chatting, the guns remained in their arms at the most convenient positions. Old Zhu had mentioned to him that Fortress 178 was a different kind of place. At that time, Ren Xiaosu thought that since they were all strongholds, how different could they be? But now he understood what Zhu Xianchu meant when he saw how different it really was. Ren Xiaosu put away the grenades while asking Zhang Xiaoman, I think we should be more careful during our attack. The layout of Sichuan village is very complex, and the Zong Consortium has recently built some new buildings. We can't guarantee that they might not have some tricks up their sleeves. I get the feeling that our attack on Sichuan village has gone too smoothly. Things that went too smoothly would always make Ren Xiaosu a little uneasy. Zhang Xiaoman didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You call this easy? If it weren't for the fact that you could accurately drop those grenades, do you know how many of our people would have died in this town? You didn't know, but Battalion Commander Zhou was prepared to sacrifice the entire forward strike battalion here. Ren Xiaosu was stunned. Is it that serious? He's prepared to sacrifice the entire forward strike battalion for this urban combat. That's right, Zhang Xiaoman sighed and said, only by taking Sichuan village and clearing out the long-range artillery emplacements hidden here can the troops in the rear regroup at the FOB with no worries and carry out the next stage of the battle plan. Next to them, Zhao Xiaochen added on, wars these days are all about modern firearms and explosives. Our forward strike battalion's role is to clear all obstacles during the early stages of the war. After that, we'll take on the temporary role of scouts to handle infiltration and recon in order to patch any missing map intel for the rest of our troops. We have basically no involvement in the main battles after that. Then did we get sent here as cannon fodder? Ren Xiaosu frowned. Why did it sound no different from being cannon fodder to him? But Zhang Xiaoman immediately rejected any suggestion of that. He said seriously, we're not cannon fodder. Fortress 178 has never required cannon fodder to win a war. It's just that the division of our fighting forces is different. Today's sacrifices will lead to a victory for the rear forces. This is also the reason why all the candidates for the successor of Fortress 178's commander must come through the razor-sharp company. Only those who have risked their lives before have the right to ask others to fight for him. Ren Xiaosu was silent. Zhao Xiaochen clapped him on the shoulder and said happily, Commander Zhang came from the razor-sharp company. If we're really cannon fodder, and if the commander was willing to be cannon fodder as well, then what makes us so special that we can reject the notion of that? Understanding dawned upon Ren Xiaosu. It was probably because of the current commander leading by example that Fortress 178 was such a cohesive force. So what did it mean when Zhang Jinglan specially arranged for him to join Razor Sharp Company after he had said that he wanted to be posted to the most dangerous unit in the fortress? How long are we going to fight this war? Ren Xiaosu asked. Until the Zong Consortium is completely destroyed, of course. We're going to fight all the way northeast till we reach Mount Pingluo, Zhang Xiaoman said, until a hyena like the Zong Consortium is totally destroyed, there won't be any peace in the northwest. That night, right after the sun set, the razor-sharp company led an attack into the interior of Sichuan village. During the day, the enemies in the town seemed to have received orders to take back the lost ground. But in urban warfare, it was always the attackers who were at a disadvantage. The route the enemy had chosen to break through was exactly where 2nd Company and 3rd Company were stationed. The 2 company commanders were already filled with anger, and the more they thought about it, the more pent up they got. Now that the enemy had come knocking on the door, they would definitely strike at them mercilessly. When they broke through the enemy lines, the machine gun positions they captured still had heavy machine guns and ammunition that could be used. However, Zhang Xiaoman and the others from Razor Sharp Company did not take them because they were already carrying a lot of weight. Now that all of these firearms and ammunition were in the hands of 2nd Company and 3rd Company, they wanted nothing more than to rain down a hail of bullets on the enemy. Several walls even collapsed from the heavy gunfire. Li Haichen was roaring with rage from behind a machine gun as he fired at the enemy ruthlessly. The defenders of Sichuan village made several waves of attacks, but they were unable to break through the defensive lines 2nd Company and 3rd Company had set up. They were forced to retreat. After the second day of surprise attacks ended, the Razor Sharp Company led the rest of the troops to advance 5 kilometers into Sichuan village. Only a small portion of the Zong Consortium's troops were still putting up a stubborn resistance in some buildings in the north. This battle made the defenders of Sichuan village extremely sullen as they had thought their firepower could hold back the enemy. In this urban warfare, there were more than a dozen emplacements with sufficient firepower. There were also many soldiers hidden within buildings, ready to snipe any of the invaders. But after 2 days, they suddenly felt like the defensive positions had been constructed out of paper. They simply could not hold back Fortress 178's soldiers. Sometimes, they would even get hit by a grenade before they saw any signs of the enemy. It was too frustrating. According to their initial plans, they would be laying waste to the entire forward strike battalion of Fortress 178 here in Sichuan village. But in the end, all it took was 3 companies from the forward strike battalion to capture Sichuan village. In fact, if this hadn't been urban combat, the effects of the grenades going off in an open space would not have caused as much destruction as it did. But now, the dark houses that were supposed to act as a defensive barrier for the garrison ended up turning into targets for Ren Xiaosu to attack. The next night, Battalion Commander Zhou Yinglong felt a little numb when Zhang Xiaoman gave him a sitrip. Zhou Yinglong had asked Commander Zhang Jinglan for more time to complete their mission. Only by having more time could they comfortably capture Sichuan village in battle. As such, the armored brigade to the rear temporarily slowed their advance. But as soon as he bought some time for the forward strike battalion, Zhang Xiaoman, who was at the front lines, actually told him they might be able to take Sichuan village by the next day. Chapter 407 Adapting to the Situation. People tended to get fatigued very easily when fighting a battle. On the battlefield, one couldn't sleep in peace, and only true warriors could endure such mental exhaustion. As the third night approached, Zhang Xiaoman ordered a firearms inspection while he gave everyone a pep talk. I want all of you to fill your magazines to full. We'll be putting an end to this battle tonight. I know you're all exhausted. We aren't, Captain. Zhao Xiaochen chuckled and said, Ren Xiaosu has been forging a safe path forward for us on the front lines all this while, and we're just here acting as his support, so we don't feel tired at all. Zhang Xiaoman was speaking his most commonly used lines to motivate the troops before the final battle. Essentially, the closing stages of a battle was when it would get most dangerous, so he was hoping to lift the spirits of his troops and let them face the fight in tip-top condition. He was never one to be good at giving pep talks. Therefore, he thought it would be better to speak while everyone was resting. But in the end, it turned out to be totally unnecessary. After 2 days of high-intensity fighting, the soldiers of the Razor Sharp Company were each more pumped up than the last. This was unlike any of the battles they had fought in the past. They'd never had it so easy before. Zhang Xiaoman said with a sigh, forget it. Let's just get it over and done with. Everyone, take note. Battalion Commander Zhou and the other commanders suspect they hid some very destructive weapon systems inside this town. So if the enemy gets forced into a corner on the final day of battle, they might choose to activate those weapons. Ren Xiaosu asked, did Battalion Commander Zhou say what might be hidden in this town? Probably weapons like artillery or something. Zhang Xiaoman said, we still lack good intelligence gathering at Fortress 178, so we don't have a clear idea of how large the garrison here is or what weapons they have. On the intelligence gathering front, Ren Xiaosu really admired the Qing Consortium. King Zhen had made a most comprehensive preparation for the war and thought about potential futures as well. Meanwhile, over at Fortress 178, the entire stronghold ran in a near-leaderless state after Zhang Jinglan went away for more than a decade. Although there was a stand-in commander during that period, he was a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. As a result, the Northwestern man who had risen through the ranks of the military was mainly focused on ensuring their military readiness by constantly training and cycling the troops. He did not really develop the economy nor establish any intelligence-gathering infrastructure, as those were not aspects he was good at. During the day, the defenders of Sichuan village launched a wave of frenzied attacks against the Fortress 178 troops. But after that wave was repulsed, there were no signs of activity from them anymore. At that time, Zhang Xiaoman thought the Zong Consortium had learned their lesson after being beaten back. However, the shadow clone Ren Xiaosu had left outside started lurking behind enemy lines. He discovered the Sichuan defenders had slowly retreated during the attack. Ren Xiaosu thought about it carefully. This attack probably acted as cover so the troops behind them could withdraw from the town, right? Only by retreating this way would Zhang Xiaoman and the others not detect them. But why were the defenders of Sichuan village retreating? Ren Xiaosu did not have time to think too much. Captain, why don't we retreat? Retreat? We just won the battle and you're calling for us to retreat? Zhang Xiaoman asked in surprise. There's danger here, Ren Xiaosu said in a serious tone. Zhang Xiaoman frowned. We headed out here to the front line precisely because there's danger, so how can we retreat? And if we retreat too far, much of the ground we gained will be lost for nothing. The Sichuan village defenders in the rear are retreating right now. There must be a reason for that. Ren Xiaosu said. How do you know they're retreating? Haven't you been here all this while? Zhang Xiaoman waved it off. We've fought all the way here, so we can't retreat. If we managed it before, we can do it again. Ren Xiaosu said anxiously, let's retreat. What if the Zong Consortium bombards the entire town with artillery? How could that be possible? We only have 3 companies storming this town. If they bombard the area with artillery, that'll be no different from shooting a mosquito with a cannon. Zhang Xiaoman was just about to keep speaking when he realized he had been lifted up by Ren Xiaosu. Zhang Xiaoman was alarmed. Put me down. However, Ren Xiaosu ignored what he was saying. He picked up Zhang Xiaoman and sprinted for the periphery of the town. The action he took dumbfounded everyone in the razor-sharp company. Zhang Xiaoman roared on Ren Xiaosu's shoulder, Put me down, Ren Xiaosu. If you disobey my order, I'll kill you. Ren Xiaosu said as he ran, if there were only 3 companies here, the Zong Consortium definitely wouldn't have fought so hard. But if the Zong Consortium knew that I was here as well, that would be different. Zhang Xiaoman was stunned. For a while, he did not understand what Ren Xiaosu was trying to get at. Meanwhile, the razor-sharp company, 2nd company, and 3rd company was still caught in a daze. Zhang Xiaoman suddenly sighed on Ren Xiaosu's shoulder and shouted, let's all retreat. Ren Xiaosu, if you don't give me a satisfactory explanation afterwards, I'll be sure to court-martial you. All the soldiers and officers looked at one another. What else could they do but retreat? When they retreated all the way outside of Sichuan village, Ren Xiaosu still kept on running for another 2 kilometers before stopping. Zhang Xiaoman nearly vomited from the bumpy ride on Ren Xiaosu's shoulder. Putting everything else aside, Ren Xiaosu's stamina was amazing. He ran several kilometers while carrying a person weighing over 50 kilograms without any problem. But just as Ren Xiaosu placed Zhang Xiaoman on the ground, the razor-sharp company saw a huge fireball erupt in Sichuan village. Explosions also burst from afar. Even though they were several kilometers away, everyone could feel the ground shaking. It was not an artillery bombardment. In fact, an artillery bombardment was not even required. The explosives left behind by the defenders of Sichuan village was all it took for the entire abandoned town to get swallowed in a sea of fire. Zhang Xiaoman stared at this sight in a daze. How fucking evil. If we didn't leave, I bet all 3 of our companies would have died. He did not pursue the issue of Ren Xiaosu forcefully carrying him away. At this moment, the soldiers from 2nd Company and 3rd Company were looking at the sea of fire with lingering fear in their minds. Because of the explosions, everyone heard ringing in their ears. How did you know the enemy retreated? Zhang Xiaoman looked at Ren Xiaosu curiously. I don't want to talk about it, Ren Xiaosu answered bluntly. All right, Zhang Xiaoman did not probe further. Instead, he thought for a moment before saying, but you still have to listen to orders in the future. Have you forgotten that I said? Captain, you said that we had to know how to adapt to the situation, interrupted Ren Xiaosu. Zhang Xiaoman looked at Zhao Xiaochen. Did I say that? Zhao Xiaochen answered honestly, yes, sir. Zhang Xiaoman laughed. This was the joy of having survived a disaster. He solemnly said to Ren Xiaosu, thank you. Gratitude received from Zhang Xiaoman, +1. This was truly a life-saving act. Had it not been for Ren Xiaosu's quick reaction, all three companies would have been wiped out in the explosions. No matter how you put it, Ren Xiaosu's arrival had certainly given their lives greater security. Meanwhile, Ren Xiaosu looked at his gratitude log in the palace and turned his gaze to the others. Chapter 408 Reaping Gratitude Tokens. Having managed to save lives, and so many of them in one fell swoop, how could Ren Xiaosu possibly pass up the opportunity to earn some gratitude tokens? There were 184 men in the razor-sharp company. After 2 battles, not a single one of them had died. Meanwhile, second company and third company were not reinforced companies, so they only had 120 people each. With a small number of casualties suffered, Ren Xiaosu had saved a total of 397 people. Everyone looked at Ren Xiaosu and did not quite understand what he wanted. When Ren Xiaosu saw they had missed the hint, he explicitly expressed, shouldn't you all thank me for saving your lives? Zhang Xiaoman was confused. Both second company and third company were too. They had never come across such a thick-skinned person before. Although he had saved their lives, straight up asking for the gratitude was too strange a request. Did he had some sort of condition that needed fulfilling? It was not like they knew Ren Xiaosu needed gratitude tokens, so they just treated it as some strange fetish of his. But even if they thought that, since their savior had made such a request, everyone would definitely not want to make it awkward for him. Second company's commander, Li Haichen, took the lead and thanked him first, followed by the others who did the same. Ren Xiaosu calculated the number of gratitude tokens he got and was surprised to see that all 397 people across the 3 companies had earned him a gratitude token each. None of them was insincere. Suddenly, Ren Xiaosu realized all his tricks to try to earn gratitude tokens previously were too shameful. Only by sincerely saving someone could he get gratitude tokens easily. Including the gratitude tokens he had earned earlier, Ren Xiaosu's gratitude tokens now surpassed 800 again. Zhang Xiaoman suddenly asked, Ren Xiaosu, I remember what you just said on the run out here about the Zong Consortium not hesitating to use their artillery shells to bombard this area due to your presence. What did you mean? Do you have a vendetta with the Zong Consortium? Ren Xiaosu thought for a moment and answered, I was just saying. Don't take it seriously. He could not explain too much. When he barged into the Zong Consortium's defensive front, he had used the shadow door to throw the explosive poker cards at their forces. Back then, not all the Zong Consortium's soldiers were killed, so Zong Cheng would definitely know he possessed that power. Although he had also used the shadow door multiple times during the urban combat, those who encountered it should all be dead. So Zong Cheng should not know he was still alive, right? If Zong Cheng knew that Ren Xiaosu was still alive, he would probably not be able to eat or sleep well. Zong Cheng had to be badly hoping to kill him, just as how he really hoped to kill Zong Cheng. Seeing that Ren Xiaosu did not want to talk about it, Zhang Xiaoman said, according to the plan, we should have garrisoned Sichuan village after we completed our mission. But now that the entire town has been destroyed, it looks like our plan will have to change. Let's contact Battalion Commander Zhou and see where we should go next. The radioman immediately radioed Zhou Yinglong. Zhou Yinglong asked blankly, what? You've captured the town already? Zhou Yinglong used to be shocked by the ferocity of the razor-sharp company. But now, he was getting used to it. Zhang Xiaoman said, Sichuan village has been destroyed. I wonder how many explosives the Zong Consortium buried in that town. They actually blew up the entire place. What? Zhou Yinglong was shocked. Then are you all right? Zhou Yinglong was an expert at fighting wars, so he could immediately tell how dangerous it was when he heard what happened. However, Zhang Xiaoman calmly replied, Fortunately, we discovered the enemy's movements in time and ran the hell out of Sichuan village. Zhou Yinglong felt that listening to the situation reports each day was really making his heart weaker. It was never as agitating as this in the previous wars they had fought. However, it was a good thing they had managed to capture Sichuan village. From now on, there would no longer be any threats in the surroundings of the forward operating base. Zhou Yinglong said, "Return to the FOB to regroup. You'll mop up the wilderness with the entire forward strike battalion in 2 days." The mop up of the wilderness was to circle the forward operating base in a radius of 120 kilometers to eliminate any hidden threat. This was to prevent the Zong consortium from leaving any guerrillas in the wilderness. In the tales of tea house storytellers, war was a struggle between the strategies of the talented. For Zhou Yinglong and the rest, war was just about getting the details right. Just establishing a forward operating base required some extreme care and caution. Only then would Commander Zhang have the foundation to execute his strategy. After all, even skyscrapers had to be built on a good foundation. Zhang Xiaoman finished communicating on the radio. He said with a grin, "Gentlemen, we can head back to the FOB and nap. Let's get the chow hall to make us some delicious food. We're the men of the hour." In the command post, Zhou Yinglong was sitting at the end of the table. If not for the forward strike battalion's special status, a battalion commander like him would not have the right to sit here. The command post was considered sacred to the troops of Fortress 178. Every time the soldiers passed by the command post tent, they would imagine the day they could also sit in there to report about the battles. At this moment, Zhang Jinglan looked at Zhou Yinglong with a smile and said, "You just went outside for a moment and can't hide the joy on your face now that you're back. What happened? Did your wife give birth to your second child?" "Commander, what are you talking about?" Zhou Yinglong said happily, "How can I possibly be contacting my wife when I'm in the base? I'm happy because my forward strike battalion has already captured Sichuan village. Luckily, they didn't fail." Zhou Yinglong's cocky expression was exactly the same as Zhang Xiaoman's when he mentioned how fortunate it was they'd succeeded. Actually, the entire forward strike battalion had the same attitude. "Oh," Zhang Jinglan smiled and said, "Didn't you ask me for more time to complete the mission the day before yesterday? You said it wouldn't be easy to take Sichuan village and even tried to reason with me how difficult urban warfare was. So why have you all suddenly achieved the objective today?" Zhou Yinglong rolled his eyes and said, "That Ren Xiaosu you had joined the razor-sharp company is a badass. Even if I personally joined the battlefield, the mission would not have gone so smoothly." "Let me hear about it," Zhang Jinglan said calmly. "That kid's superpower is to open up a portal to anywhere within a 1-kilometer range. This power seems to be specifically made for urban warfare." Zhou Yinglong praised, "He can cripple an MG nest with a grenade from 1 kilometer away. Hell yeah." Zhang Jinglan smiled at the people around him and said, "Zhou Yinglong told me at the beginning that he didn't want Ren Xiaosu, saying that he looked too skinny to fight. But I reckon that he won't let Ren Xiaosu leave if someone tries to steal him away." Zhou Yinglong mumbled, "What I meant back then was that I don't want useless people. I realize he's useful now, and he even contributed greatly too." Meanwhile, the group of commanders at the table were thinking that Zhou Yinglong was too good at sucking up to others. He knew that Commander Zhang wanted to hear about Ren Xiaosu, so he specifically chose to share Ren Xiaosu's heroic deeds with him. But everyone knew that Zhou Yinglong was telling the truth, because Zhou Yinglong would not dare to lie in front of Commander Zhang. Someone spoke up, "Just being capable isn't enough. What's he like?" Everyone was judging Ren Xiaosu as a candidate to be the next fortress commander. So, capabilities aside, his conduct was something that mattered to them as well. Chapter 409 Stupidity and Bravery. When Zhang Jinglan assigned Ren Xiaosu to the razor-sharp company in the war room, he was making his stand clear. Moreover, he even placed Ren Xiaosu under the spotlight and illuminated him for everyone to see. As the commander's choice, if he could not convince the masses or lead by example, Zhang Jinglan would not force the matter. But since Zhang Jinglan made the choice, he was not afraid of everyone finding fault with his decision. Back then, if Zhang Jinglan did not admire Ren Xiaosu, he would not have allowed Ren Xiaosu to become the replacement teacher of the school. However, Zhang Jinglan had not expected Ren Xiaosu to come this far at that time. At that time, Zhang Jinglan had thought about getting Ren Xiaosu to be the schoolteacher because that arrangement would not affect the progress of the students. If Ren Xiaosu was a normal person, he would not be thinking about pulling him into this whirlpool of authority either. But even though he did not pull him in, Ren Xiaosu walked straight into it himself. What Fortress 178 needed was not a good person as its leader. But of course, they could not be a bad person, or worse, a belligerent bore. When Zhang Jinglan first started looking at the commanders around him, he was surprised that none of them were suitable choices. Until Wang Shengji delivered Ren Xiaosu right to his doorstep. Actually, Ren Xiaosu was not the best candidate either. However, Zhang Jinglan felt that the young man had drive, and as long as he had that kind of motivation, his future was something Zhang Jinglan thought would be worth looking forward to. However, these commanders believed the young Ren Xiaosu was only lucky to be chosen by Zhang Jinglan. Meanwhile, Zhang Jinglan was thinking that Ren Xiaosu might not even be willing to remain at Fortress 178. Zhou Yinglong could not answer the question about Ren Xiaosu's character. He should be alright. To be honest, Zhou Yinglong only cared about the Citreps. Why would he worry about whether Ren Xiaosu was a good person? To Zhou Yinglong, everything was fine as long as they won the battles. Zhang Jinglan tapped his fingers on the table. Hu Xinzi, Chai Zhelong, your armored brigade and infantry divisions will need to get to the FOB ASAP. I'll give you 2-3 days. Fu Hong, your engineering battalion will need to hurry to the Blackstone River within half a month and build a bridge crossing there. Numerous orders were issued from Zhang Jinglan's mouth as everyone realized this was not the time to be worrying over Ren Xiaosu. They still had a tough battle on their hands. When the razor-sharp company returned to the forward operating base, Zhang Xiaoman went to the makeshift chow hall and shouted, "Lin Yus, where's Lin Yus?" Lin Yus, who was the manager of the makeshift chow hall, walked out with a smile on his face. "Hey, if it isn't Captain Zhang, our war hero. Make some good grub. Our brothers are hungry after coming back from the front lines. We're gonna shower first. After we're done showering, we wanna see the piping hot dishes ready. Braised pork and braised chicken, those are 2 dishes we demand." Zhang Xiaoman shouted. Lin Yu smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'll make just for you. There's even barley wine for you to drink. Just be sure to not sneak it out of the base. After today, you can't drink anymore." Normal soldiers couldn't request the dishes they wanted or drink alcohol. Even an officer like Zhou Yinglong was not allowed to do so, as all officers and men were treated in the same regard. However, war heroes were different. They could freely request whatever food they wanted that even the fortress commander could not eat. This had always been the tradition in Fortress 178. You would be given whatever you wished to eat after winning a battle. Rules like these made the men in Fortress 178 understand one thing, and that was how they definitely had to win all their battles. Allowing the razor-sharp company to drink alcohol was due to the fact that they would not be going on any new missions for the next 2 days. They were back to regroup and rest, after all, but not letting them sneak the alcohol away was in case they drank before the next battle and end up delaying everything. Zhang Xiaoman swaggered out of the chow hall so much that even his shoulders were overflowing with arrogance. He was as smug as he could get. When the soldiers from the engineering corps saw him, they laughed and said, "Zhang Xiaoman, you're so damn fucking cocky." Zhang Xiaoman smiled and said, "Can't I be cocky after returning victorious from a battle? The mission that old Zhou set for me was to capture Sichuan village within half a month, but we managed to do it in 3 days." But just as he said that, Zhang Xiaoman felt his ass get kicked. When he turned around and saw it was Zhou Yinglong, he immediately smiled and said, "Battalion Commander, how have you been these past few days?" Zhou Yinglong's face darkened. "Don't embarrass yourself. Hurry up and shower already." "Ah, all right." Zhang Xiaoman turned around and ran off. One could take a hot shower at the forward operating base, with the facilities here much more complete than expected. When Ren Xiaosu heard it was possible to take a hot shower, he wondered how these soldiers did it. When everyone took off the clothes and walked into the showers, Zhao Xiaochen was shocked when he saw Ren Xiaosu. While wearing clothes, he thought that Ren Xiaosu looked quite thin. But now he felt Ren Xiaosu's muscles exuded an aura of strength. After they showered and dressed, Ren Xiaosu was surprised to see 2 girls in nurse uniforms standing at the entrance of the showers. Ren Xiaosu thought they were waiting for the other soldiers of the razor-sharp company, but when the two girls saw Ren Xiaosu, their eyes lit up. One of the girls took the initiative to walk up to him and whispered, "When you first arrived at the FOB, I took notice of you. Here, this hand cream is for you." With that said, the girl grabbed the other girl's hand and ran off. The razor-sharp company's soldiers behind him were all jealous when they saw this scene. "I'm jealous again. Why is Ren Xiaosu so popular with the ladies?" Zhao Shaochen smiled and said, "We're just a group of rugged men from the northwest. The moment Ren Xiaosu arrived, we were knocked off our perches. Also, the entire military knows he's a supernatural being and that Commander Zhang thinks highly of him, so of course the girls would try to get to know him." As he finished speaking, an orderly ran over. He looked at Ren Xiaosu and asked, "Are you Ren Xiaosu?" "Yes, I am," Ren Xiaosu said. "Commander Zhang has summoned you. He wishes to see you." The orderly showed him the way. Ren Xiaosu turned around and said to Zhao Shaochen and the others, "You all can eat first. I'll be there in a bit." "All right, we'll leave some for you," Zhao Shaochen said in envy. He had actually been summoned to meet the commander on his own. When Ren Xiaosu arrived at the command post tent, only Zhang Jinglan was inside. He was standing deep in thought in front of the sand table. Ren Xiaosu walked in and said, "Teacher." When Zhang Jinglan heard that, he was taken aback before smiling and saying, "I haven't been addressed that way in a long time." Ren Xiaosu also smiled and said, "I really miss the school days." Zhang Jinglan glanced at him before sighing. "We can't go back to those days." "Teacher, why have you called me here?" Ren Xiaosu asked. "I just thought of chatting with you to catch up," Zhang Jinglan said with a smile. "The razor-sharp company has participated in 2 tough battles consecutively without anyone dying. Is that to your credit?" "Not really." Ren Xiaosu gave it some thought and said, "There was also some luck involved." "Do you know how hard it is to lead a company on the battlefield without anyone dying?" Zhang Jinglan asked. "I know it's very difficult." "If you know how difficult it is and still insist on achieving it at the risk of injuring yourself, that's called stupidity," Zhang Jinglan said calmly. Ren Xiaosu remained silent for a moment before replying, "Same goes for bravery." Chapter 410 The second weapon finally gets unlocked. When Zhang Jinglan heard Ren Xiaosu's reply, he burst into laughter. "Well said, same goes for bravery, huh?" In reality, Zhang Jinglan did not know that for Ren Xiaosu, ensuring the survival of all his razor-sharp company's comrades had become an obsession in the course of his revenge. That obsession dictated whether he was qualified to protect some things. The things Ren Xiaosu wanted to protect in the past had been destroyed by the Zong Consortium. This led to Ren Xiaosu looking back on his beautiful vision from before and thinking about whether he could protect anything in this chaotic world. As a result, he had even taken on the survival of the razor-sharp company as his personal mission. Only by ensuring that the razor-sharp company remained intact could he have the right to go to the Central Plains later to search for his family and friends to continue living in this chaotic world. "I can sense conflict within you," Zhang Jinglan said calmly. "It's exactly the same as when I was young. Back then, everyone wanted me to pick up a gun, saying how the battlefield needed soldiers who could fire a gun, how it was no place for a useless medic. Sometimes, even I wondered if my persistence was correct, and whether I should also pick up a gun and attack alongside them." Zhang Jinglan continued, "At that time, I was thinking about bending to the will of this chaotic world. Only that way could I live a better life." "What happened?" Ren Xiaosu asked. "Persistence is persistence. Being correct doesn't matter," Zhang Jinglan said. "Never deny yourself. Life should be a candle, burning brightly from tip to end." Ren Xiaosu silently muttered the words to himself. Life should be a candle, burning brightly from tip to end. He suddenly realized Zhang Jinglan might have called him over because he saw the conflict inside him, so he wanted to tell him these words. Zhang Jinglan smiled and said, "Where do you plan on going after destroying the Zong Consortium?" "To the Central Plains," Ren Xiaosu said with certainty. "I want to find Big Sister Xiaoyu, Yan Luyuan, and the others and bring them back." Zhang Jinglan asked again, "Will you return to Fortress 178? "I'm not sure." Ren Xiaosu could not answer that question. "You should know why I had you join the razor-sharp company. I won't stop you from going to the Central Plains, but if there's something you wish to protect, then Fortress 178 is your best choice. Ren Xiaosu said in a serious tone, Commander, if you don't let me go and eat now, there won't be any food left. Ren Xiaosu suddenly remembered he had just come out of the shower and had not eaten yet. When Ren Xiaosu arrived at the Chow Hall, Zhang Xiaoman was already on the verge of blacking out. Ren Xiaosu sat nearby and ate the food everyone had left for him. However, they had kept so much food for him that it felt like they were afraid he wouldn't have enough to eat. Zhang Xiaoman dragged Ren Xiaosu to drink with him, but Ren Xiaosu refused to drink anything at all. When Zhang Xiaoman realized he could not persuade Ren Xiaosu, he turned around to look for someone else. While drinking, Zhang Xiaoman suddenly hugged Zhao Xiaochen and said, Wei Yunlin, I missed you. Zhao Xiaochen quickly pushed Zhang Xiaoman off and chided him with a laugh, you miss your wife now. Someone laughed at Zhang Xiaoman while drinking and said, your wife getting married to you is like sticking a flower in a cow pie. Zhang Xiaoman sobered up a little and said unhappily, if she's a flower, then cows ain't gonna shit anymore. Stop acting like it was a pity to marry her. You don't know what kind of a treasure you've picked up. All you know is how to pretend to be tough when you're outside, Zhao Xiaochen said with a laugh. Ren Xiaosu was an outsider in the noisy Chow Hall. He might be obsessed with keeping the razor-sharp company alive, but even now, it was very difficult for him to feel like he truly belonged in the razor-sharp company. And he had the same feeling for Fortress 178 as well. Lin Yuz, the manager of the Chow Hall, was watching the razor-sharp company with his arms folded and laughing. He smiled at the chefs beside him and said, see that? These are the war heroes of our army. They're the ones who fought in the 2 battles recently, and they even won both of them. Someone muttered, Chief Lin, is that young man sitting by them and eating also from the razor-sharp company? Why does it feel like he doesn't fit in? Lin Yuz turned his gaze to Ren Xiaosu and saw him eating quietly. He looked unaffected by the noise around him. Is he the guy called Ren Xiaosu? Rumor has it that Ren Xiaosu's a beast in battle, yeah. I heard that half the credit for capturing Sichuan village goes to him. That young man looks so soft it doesn't fit the descriptions at all. But then Zhang Xiaoman came up to Ren Xiaosu in his drunken stupor and clutched Ren Xiaosu's left hand. Bro, if it weren't for you, our brothers wouldn't have made it back this time. Thank you again for saving our lives. Then Lin Yuz and the Chow staff watched with their jaws hanging as Zhang Xiaoman knelt on the ground to thank him. He nearly even kowtowed to Ren Xiaosu. When someone had too much to drink, they were fucking capable of doing anything. Ren Xiaosu had not finished his meal yet, but he quickly pulled Zhang Xiaoman up. Can you fucking stop drinking already? But while he was pulling Zhang Xiaoman up, his comrades from the razor-sharp company beside him also came over to toast him. Thank you, Ren Xiaosu, for saving our lives. Ren Xiaosu did not expect his second weapon to get unlocked while everyone in the Chow Hall was watching. After this group of northwestern men had too much to drink, they started thanking him to no end. They easily said it 7 or 8 times in a row, and all of them were even sincere in the gratitude. Ren Xiaosu was wondering if he should keep some alcohol in his storage space in the future. When they had nothing better to do, he could get his comrades of the razor-sharp company together for a drink or two. The voice from the palace said, you have reached the number of gratitude tokens required to unlock the side quest's weapon. Confirm unlock. Ren Xiaosu took a deep breath. Unlock. The palace suddenly filled with a faint glow. Along the circular walls of the palace, a display cabinet that was originally shrouded in a dark fog brightened. The black mist within it slowly dissipated as well. Ren Xiaosu looked at it and saw a large, black sniper rifle stored inside the long and extensive display cabinet. Ren Xiaosu was guessing if the second weapon would be another saber, a sword, or perhaps, a bow. But he did not expect a sniper rifle. He was even more surprised that the sniper rifle also appeared on the back of the shadow clone. It was like his originally unrelated skills would eventually undergo a chemical reaction and combine. There were 2 black sniper rifles and 2 black sabers. When the sniper rifle was revealed behind the black mist, Ren Xiaosu immediately understood the properties of the sniper rifle. It had an effective range of 2,800 meters and did not need to be loaded with any bullets, and even the bullets could be conjured with his mind. He could also switch between incendiary bullets and armor-piercing bullets as he wished. These days, the most effective sniper rifle in the world only had an effective range of 2,300 meters. Effective range referred to the typical engagement distances in normal situations. As long as someone wasn't shooting at a specific target, bullet drop need not be considered. If a sniper calculated the trajectory precisely and had good marksmanship, hitting a further target would not be a problem at all. For example, the maximum effective range of a sniper rifle was 2,300 meters. However, the longest recorded kill was at 2,475 meters. Wait, while Ren Xiaosu was exploring the black sniper rifle in his mind, he discovered a type of bullet he had never seen before. Under normal circumstances, there were generally several types of sniper bullets: white, red, green, brass, orange, and so on. The difference in color was to differentiate between normal lead bullets, armor-piercing bullets, incendiary bullets, and traces. But what was this black-tipped bullet? This concludes the chapters. Show your appreciation by liking this video and subscribe.